6 o'clock, we're gonna get started. So, I'm gonna call the meeting to order, 6 o'clock. Roll call.
Tomassian.
Here.
Mayor Norman.
Here.
Councilman Brett. Here. Councilman Dean.
Here. Alright, pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alright, so we've got a copy of the Open Meetings Act on the checkerboard of the board back there, and it's available in pamphlet form. And we're doing a workshop to discuss our budget for this upcoming season of 24-25. So, a budget was submitted by Transportation Department. Does anybody have anything they want to discuss or talk about on that?
Say that one more time.
The Transportation Department. Anybody have anything they want to talk about with that? I know she submitted everything.
Okay.
So, I'm just making sure everybody's okay on that. Do we have one more copy? Here it is.
Thanks.
I would only say the transportation activity is primarily funded from the federal and state grants with a matching 10% portion from the city. And we've accounted for inflationary percentage increases for next year. Other than that, I don't see any major discussion points.
Okay.
Starting the second one.
Did she sit down and visit with any of you guys before she left?
No.
Okay.
But she did provide a full report and
Right.
everything was broken out for you.
Right. Trying to get there.
I don't know, why is the bus a
Why is
charge?
the bus a charge?
Say that again?
The bus looks like it's parked down at Charlie's garage. Is there something wrong with the bus?
Air
Air
conditioning
conditioner.
problems,
Yeah.
it's pretty critical for that bus.
Oh, totally. I just hadn't heard
So-
anything
and
wrong with
she's
the
off
bus. I
this
thought,
week,
no,
so
maybe
it was
something to
perfect
talk
window
about.
to leave it while she's off this week, so. Charlie knows it, Friday, drop dead day.
Sure, sure. No, I was just curious if it
Yeah.
was something that was
AC
fixable
problems.
or if we need to consider it, so.
Yeah.
AC problems.
That's fixable.
Alright, any other questions?
She already had, $2,060 budgeted for maintenance and repairs within there, so as long as the repairs currently going on, that don't have an impact.
Yeah, and all of this is,
I don't know.
this is for
It
the
shouldn't
upcoming.
say-
Well, no, I just have, we went off the baseline from previous.
Right, but what I'm saying is, we're here to discuss this
Yeah.
coming year's budget,
Yeah,
so
okay.
everything
So-
else is not.
So, yeah, this should be in this year, she's not anticipating any repairs next year for her budget.
All right,
That's how I'm seeing it.
all right.
Charlie was really nice with them.
You want me to make a note there?
Yeah.
Yeah, that really
So,
is
so keep in mind, any potential dollar amount changes you may propose, anything like that, I am noting on my copy of the budget, so just bear with me. Okay.
Looks like she budgeted for 20 next year.
Yeah, same amount.
But no vehicle repairs underneath it.
I think
She
that's
put
a-
most of that under maintenance.
Under
Fund
maintenance.
maintenance.
There was repairs vehicle line 15-201.
Yeah.
in the amount of $2,600.
But I'm assuming that if she needs to use it up, it's just still okay to use it,
Yeah,
right? As long as it's under something, she'd be okay.
Do you wanna carry that over?
As long as there's something in there.
Do you wanna carry that over? That
As
amount?
long as,
Yeah.
well, and I don't know that you necessarily need to move it, I think it's okay under maintenance because it's
Oh, okay.
fixing the air conditioner surge and maintaining the
Yeah.
vehicle, so that is maintenance.
You wanna-
Even if it goes down and you fix it, it's still maintenance.
Yeah.
But, you know,
I do think for simplicity, if she wants, can, breaking it down to vehicle maintenance versus other stuff.
I thought we had, I don't think it's necessary, you know, cause I don't think it's necessary, cause then you're, if you line item it to that expense, you're gonna pay it out and spend it to that degree. So the more wiggle room you give yourself, I think that's okay.
So we're gonna keep
I think
everything?
it's okay. Just
Yeah.
the way it is.
Okay.
Yeah, I
All
think
right.
we're good.
Any other questions?
On transportation.
Transportation.
Nope, I think transportation is okay.
Alright, we're gonna move on from transportation. Next one, we're gonna do golf.
Office 33, which is the last one.
Thank you.
Dawson, if you want.
It's a hot seat.
Reach over here closer to. I think you meant his nose.
Alright, so, we do have some data, that Jeannie's got available.
Julie actually
Julia
has it,
actually
yeah.
has it. Yes, sir.
Are we on the golf?
Yes.
Okay, so that was the only comment on transportation?
And we decided it was fine the way it was. So we're good to move, yeah.
We decided this was.
Thank you for verifying, Dan.
This was that amount. For the current. So this is, currently year-to-date balance, through today is $56,916.26 in the negative.
So our profit, or not profit, our income has been how much this year compared to our expenses?
It has been. Oh, wait. So, 36.
Yeah, I think it's the one all the way on the left here.
we're about 11.1% over budget.
I
on
think
golf.
that's what we're.
Okay.
Sounds
So-
about right, if that's-
So if
Based on this and
pay
her
today
number.
balance $36,037.41. Would you like me to repeat that?
Please.
Yes.
Please.
$36,037.41.
And that's what?
That's what we brought
That's
in.
just what
That's
we brought
revenues
in.
to date.
So we still have July, August, and September, and anything in October that may come in, so.
We've been open how long?
Say that
And
more.
we're gearing up and we're getting into the tournament season.
We will
Yeah.
have tournaments, we had a tournament Saturday, we'll have a tournament the 10th, we'll have a tournament 2 weeks after that, and then we'll have another tournament after that, and then we'll have the sale barn tournament that always brings in a bunch of booze, sales.
Two wedding
August,
receptions.
September are always our three best months.
So
Right.
April, May, June, July,
April, May is where it's most,
so
year to year.
Yeah.
Your upfront costs are higher, but with like, memberships and everything, I mean, there should be upfront income also. Just asking.
Yes, but with the new point of sale machine now, everybody waited until like June to pay.
Okay, no, just use that.
if I had to ask for an estimated forecast of balance by the close of the fiscal year, what do you think you're gonna be?
As far, say it one more time.
If I had to say, okay, you got 3 months left of the fiscal year before give you room for earnings versus your overreach, what do you think you're gonna be?
We'll have we haven't had financials for 2 years to look at, so it's a little hard
Sure.
to judge. Our big tournaments usually bring in about $9,000 to $12,000
For the course?
for the course.
Yeah.
Each? Okay.
That's booze, concessions,
And we have
fees.
how many left? 4 of us?
We have
4 big ones?
2 big,
We have 2 big ones, Labor Day is one.
Potential $18,000 revenue on those two.
and then
What's
we,
that?
Potential $18,000
Yeah.
revenue on those two.
Yeah.
those 2, and then your couples tournament generally generates, if it's
We
full,
just had the couples or,
Yeah, that's the 10th.
August 10th.
which will have a couple thousand on that.
The Security First Fire Department, I don't know what that brought in, we just had that was pretty full
That
though,
was
wasn't it? Was that full?
17
About
17 3-man teams.
$3,000 with what they paid with liquor, wasn't a great one.
Oh, but not a lot of liquor, drink, and then based off the numbers, was it $18 a person if it's over 60 people or whatever?
With the matrix, yeah, the way the matrix.
So
breaks it
based
down.
on what you're estimating in revenues versus where your current year-to-date overages are, you're still gonna be about, what, 20 grand over budget?
This year, it's looking like that. And
Is that including the 30,000? to
Yeah, so
sewer
that,
department?
he mentioned, oh, we have that too.
Well, that's the other thing is I didn't even calculate the DOR mandate and how we're gonna manage that.
Julia and, I'm sorry, my brain's like.
Jeannie.
Yeah,
Jeannie.
sorry, thank you. That warrant that we signed to pay the pump and we didn't end up using it, that's not counting against what they have for
Expenditure.
spent, right?
The amount that you spent on the pump that we didn't use.
Right, so we approved paying, how much was it for that pump?
Wasn't it like $20,000
It
or
was quite a
something like
bit.
that to pump that pond?
Right, so I didn't know if it had been considered in
But that's,
cost used, or if
That-
it, because it
that's
hadn't
still-
been officially paid, it wasn't added.
Did we
So
actually
that is,
pump
that
it?
is, no, and that is not accounted in this year's
Okay.
budget and not accounted,
Good.
it's somewhat accounted for in next year's budget, but it's not.
Okay,
Cause it's a cost I can't put a number on,
right,
and it's gotta happen, but I'm not seeing it counted in this year's budget,
Okay.
and we did.
I just wanna make sure it
definitely-
wasn't already counting against them for putting them
No,
farther
no,
behind.
that
Okay,
hasn't
I just wanna
been
clarify that.
so
accounted for.
Okay.
are we rolling it over to next year's budget as an unexpended rollover to still fund that approved project?
Well,
There was
that's,
no funds to fund it this year.
Okay, so it was already an overage.
Well, it was budgeted for on a wish list basis last year, but
Yeah,
That was
it was-
pretty
you know,
low.
that's a
Okay.
loose deal
Okay.
there.
So if we take what our estimated revenue earnings are by the end of the fiscal year and the DOR mandate, we're still looking at 50 grand over budget.
So,
So you were talking about pumping out of the pond, not a pump,
No.
physical.
No,
we didn't
we're-
put-
no,
okay,
It was,
okay,
it
okay,
was,
okay.
it was a
we're-
service for someone to come in and help us with
Right,
that, cause
okay.
ours wasn't
I was-
working
they were
properly.
gonna bring a pump in,
I'm gonna say we're
pump
probably
down.
looking at a $30,000 expense to do what needs to be done, and
Okay.
dewater that pond,
Yeah.
de-sludge it, raise that intake to get rid of their silt problem. Then there's potentially a filter issue on top of that, so I've asked Amanda to start reaching out to suppliers on the filter, she's got some leads on that, I gave her some direction on that, and we're waiting on numbers for that. We didn't have much time this week.
No.
You have to do
This is
it.
our first meeting,
That's
we've
fair.
got.
And this is why it's a workshop, this is
So
not a
I passed
final anything,
our
right?
manager out, our supervisor out there to start doing the footwork on that.
We have historical correspondence that dictates that DOR reimbursement, right?
Yeah,
it's mandated by Nebraska Department of
Okay.
Revenue.
I wanna make sure that everybody understands that it's not an item we can kick down the road again.
Can I just, clarity for myself, we're talking about the misappropriated funds that need to be reimbursed.
No, it's
Yes.
a
Okay.
mandate
That's
from
all
the
I need.
Department of Revenue that
Okay.
says
That has to be
that
addressed.
activity has to reimburse back to where money was transferred from to
It
cover.
has to, and it has to be documented,
Do
because
we
we're gonna
have-
be held
Do
accountable.
we have a paper copy of that, just to put in today's minutes or anything, just to make sure it's a refresher, and if anybody needs to refer to it or whatnot, then they can. Do we have a paper copy or a reference that we can
I-
add
We're gonna
to?
have to.
We're gonna have
We have to look for, okay.
Yeah.
If
I know the
it's,
city
if it's
attorney also
possible.
had a copy of it in his.
Okay, I was like, if it's possible, I just think it'd be a good idea, because there's a lot of new people around and whatnot, and not everybody have probably put their eyes on that, so if we have an opportunity to
I
put that
haven't
in,
been able to put
and that
mine.
way everybody has a chance to kind of look it over
I
and
will.
really decipher and see exactly what it means, how it needs to be applied, and be
Does
considered.
anybody know about the timeframe that would have?
I could find out.
Yeah, we could help you with that.
Um,
But that way, I
As
mean, we just
far-
have so many new people, that way everybody has eyes on it, we can all make sure that we agree on the interpretation and we can follow it to what it needs to be. Cause we might be, you know, a couple telephone lines down, and if we reread it, we might
And
be
that
able to give
was
ourselves a little bit more.
Nebraska Department of.
revenue. So, the way that came about was, they were funding they were propping up the golf course with, sewer funds, which those funds we charge specifically for a service that we provide, and therefore it's theft of funds. And so we're mandated
Yeah,
to
we used it.
pay that back.
Did we have a
And
balance?
they gave us a payback rate.
Yeah,
I would think it's supposed to be
our
much
last
less.
audit was, what was it, 178,000 still owed to the sewer fund?
Like that.
Okay.
We'll look into
Alright.
more. So, but with going forward on numbers and everything, from what information I got, the previous year, we actually did make a profit, so maybe trying to figure out where the difference is at.
Was that profit counting the debt liability?
No,
Well,
he
Right.
refused to
It
let it
wasn't,
happen.
cause it wasn't, well, and you can't compare it when it wasn't balanced, cause we still haven't figured out how to balance last year's. So that's not anything that, I mean, it was suggested that that was the case, but without the actual numbers, you can't really,
Okay, so. what's
I've
the-
yet to
what-
see
what
anything
is-
that's proved.
Basically, what's the way forward with the activity?
I think what you suggested where, you know, we do what we can to at least go forward with making sure that if we do run into loss this year, it's minimal, and then take that into consideration for what we have expected for next year.
That's just,
I guess.
we're just gonna eat the debt.
We'll have
We're gonna
to,
balance the budget by transfer of funds to eat the debt.
right, but
and
we'll
the
have to
overage.
keep that in mind definitely for next year, I think.
Has
So
there
that
been
that
any-
way it's not just snowballing and kicking down the road, it's actually, you know, if you got it, if we're helping out this year, it's gotta be made up for next year, whatever it needs to be, but something that's, I guess, productive as opposed to.
So basically,
what-
how much increase was the golf looking at trying to increase their budget?
We haven't had financials since November of 2022.
Right. So, the question.
I have no idea what's been going on out there.
Yeah, he doesn't.
Zero clue.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
we haven't had numbers.
There hasn't been numbers.
November of 2022 was the last actual
So
financials.
the recommendation at this point is to baseline you, reconcile you at the end of the fiscal year, and baseline your debt, and then come up with a new budget for you.
What was the profit that they showed last year?
I don't know.
I've never seen proof of
There's
it, that's
never
just
been a
what was
profit,
suggested from Tom at one point.
I
And I've
agree
never
with
seen
that.
Hold on,
32,
hold
he
on,
said
hold on.
32,000, but we never did pay that.
Hold on.
She's got-
30,000.
You've got
Jeannie's
that
got a
paper.
report.
For those,
That
the
is
budgets
not-
for the last
Isn't it?
But again, but if it's not budget, if
Right.
it's not balanced, it doesn't count.
Is it
Can I leave them all
valid
And I don't
or
mean to,
not?
I'm not trying to
It doesn't count.
poo-poo on it or anything, but it's,
So, here's
we
the
need to come up with, we want to come up with a balance.
2023, 22, and 21,
Sure.
the ending balance was positive on the 23,
And we rolled that over, right?
positive on the 22, but it was the 20 that was negative.
So,
But that is
these,
part of what's not balanced though.
right, this is.
Right.
And is this
That's part of what's
balanced or
not
not
balanced,
balanced?
correct.
It's far as, you're talking treasurer's report or things like that.
Right, well, cause technically, for the treasurer's report to work,
Right.
your ledger has to be balanced, and in order for the reports to be accurate, the ledger has to be balanced, so.
Okay, if I turn around and I
So-
reconcile the 27 overage, 27,958.12 overage for
It's on the
this
other
one,
side.
well, that's not
Profit.
profit. And I turn around and say, okay, the previous profit was 11,436.21. And then I turn around and go, you had a previous year was 37,352 in the whole, the 3 years balanced each other out.
Mhm.
So, quick question, and
And
tell me if you, cause I feel like you understand where you're having trouble balancing. Are any of those areas tied to the golf? Or are they in different areas that we're having trouble balancing? Cause I feel like when you work with it, you know where the trouble is, and you just
Right.
can't get it to work.
Right.
Do you feel any of it is tied to that?
There
specific-
were 4 different transactions that were duplicated in the system.
Sure.
I have since removed those.
Those were all
So
payroll
the-
related, right? Or deposits or payroll?
They're all deposits.
Okay.
Okay.
So they were already, the other ones were already reconciled. So it's
Okay.
just-
And those
But
weren't in
those weren't
relationship to
deposits.
this activity?
Right, they weren't deposits tied to the golf course, they'd be deposits tied to utility, or it's hard to tell.
It's hard to tell.
Okay,
I think
sure,
they were
fair.
actual golf deposits
So
from
they could
receipts.
affect them.
Okay.
So they could be potentially making more within the year and not be as far behind as they are if those deposits are part of what's not matching.
Right,
Okay.
but since I've deleted them already, those
Right.
reports were done after.
Sure, so
So-
they could just potentially be lower than, but they could potentially be.
Potential, but yeah, they were done, they were
So
removed
that is-
before I
those
printed those
reports-
Right,
reports. So,
right. No, that
as I'm
makes
saying,
sense. Sure.
they're probably not included in it since they were already removed.
Fair.
So
That's
you're
right.
asking,
So that
At least then
report-
that is more accurate because it's everything that is, that technically can be balanced.
Right,
Sure.
yes, yeah.
So it'd just
So-
be extra.
And that's the
Quite a
main
little.
thing that we're off on the treasurer's report, is just
Right.
duplicate entries or things that have not cleared,
Right,
so, yeah.
right.
So-
Okay.
you're
Thank
asking
you.
for a total budgeting allowance and expenditures for 2024-2025 of $492,332.
Where's that?
Last page.
Oh, sorry. For golf?
For golf.
But remember, we asked them to include wish lists and everything else, so.
Okay,
So
but
what- what's on here
what was
for a
potentially
wish list?
budgeted from before was
So-
291.
291,711.
So that's,
So the first
That's
one
about
on it that I know
$200,000
that some of their wish list
increase.
items are on lease and purchase, and Amanda jumped right in.
So, one of the line item 335650,
Which is
We-
lease and purchase.
right, I was just giving them the number, would be $1,009.356. So,
$100,000.
that,
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
What did you
Sorry.
plan on purchasing or leasing? Okay.
I looked at purchasing a new greens mower, so we can move the one we have over to a T-box mower, so then we can use the T-box mower as set up just for verticut, which we need to do to get back to having the greens that we should have. And then a workman, which is like
Replace your Cushman.
to replace, cause we need hydraulics, we have a spreader, we have a top dresser, all that kind of stuff that runs off hydraulics, but we do not have anything that we can put it on.
Is this for lease or purchase?
The 109 is for purchase.
What's the cost for lease?
Can I jump in right there?
I would
Yeah.
love it if you
Yes,
did.
so Amanda came to me, she was just struggling with the budget, what to do, so I just kind of jumped in, started helping her along. She brought all the paperwork on the equipment that she wanted. Her first proposal to me was the lease option. So just the lease on the triplex and what was the other one, the Cushman?
So the three that I was looking at, the triplex, the workman, and the blower.
So the blower wasn't included in the two original leases, if I recall.
No, it was in there,
Okay,
it was in there.
So it was a 48-month and a 36-month lease. I did the math on the lease, so 1 year of that lease would be $73,000 and some change. The outright purchase price of that,
And so I got a hold of Brandon today, the guy that come up with this. I finally got a hold, he called me back today, and he that price is not right when we were looking at it.
Okay,
Cause he wrote in, he misprinted, he gave me 2 greens mowers instead of 1. And so our budget price would have been $11,902 over the,
109.
over the, if we leased it, over the, yeah, it would be the, either 2 years or 3 years.
Okay, so basically the lease payments came out to $73,000 a year with the equipment combined. The buyout was the $109,000 to buy outright. It was
Yes.
a 36-month lease, so in my head, I couldn't justify 3 years lease at $73,000 when we could buy the equipment for $109,000.
What's the life cycle of the equipment?
The life
system, I'm
cycle,
not quite familiar with. So,
Sorry, compared to what we got, I mean.
Well, no,
Probably 30 years.
Rough standard is about 45 years.
okay, the reason is because if you're looking at purchasing,
Right, no, it's a good.
you're gonna break
So if
over
you'll let me
the life
answer.
cycle of it.
Yes, if you'll let me answer. If we get these new, they will be actually taken care of now. So they will last with new reels and bed knives that we need to keep them up, make sure the oil's changed, that kind of stuff. My mower, for sure, I know I can go at least 10 years with that. I've never worked with the blower that I'm looking at, so I mean, the guy I talked to said that they have used ones that people have had for 15 years.
So let's just say 10
So,
years.
and then my workman, same thing. I'm gonna guess the Cushman we have now, I think they've had for, I'm gonna go 12 years.
I don't think they've made Cushmans in 30.
So you're looking at a $10,000.
And well, that was a used Cushman as
Right.
well.
$10,900 depreciation over 10 years, every year over 10 years.
so I guess.
Yeah, it's smart to buy it.
It is.
The only upside to the leasing is that if there's a problem with it, then Toro will pay for it.
Will they come here to service or will they?
So we do the normal servicing, the oil changing, the.
I'm talking about
But
repairs.
they'll either send the stuff to us to fix it, or they'll send a tech, is the way I understand it. Again, this was kinda short notice, so I didn't get the whole lowdown, but
And
the way I
where's
understood it.
Toro out of? Are they-
We'd be going through L. Johnson, and they've got a place in Denver.
Mm.
Do we get, if we go with the new purchase, do we get warranty for any amount of years? Sure.
I don't know.
I would assume we get something.
I mean, I'm
Buy
sure
brand
we
new.
would, but also at the same time, it's kinda, I think it's one of those where you bought it, it's yours now.
But they'd be brand new. that
But
we're
they
buying.
would
We're
be
not
brand,
buying used.
they
So
would be
depending
brand
on
new,
looking at
and
it.
I'm sure being brand new, if we did have some electrical problems, that kinda stuff,
The equipment,
It
I'm
would
looking
work
at by
itself.
another manufacturer, 2 years.
Sure.
it would work itself out.
We just.
He also said that it's, they're backlogged in, like my greens mower. The two things that I would like the most, the greens mower and the workman are, everybody wants them.
Right.
So if I ordered them yesterday, he wouldn't know if I would get them till like later than that. He's not sure I'd have them next year,
Wow.
just because there's so many people ordering those.
So generally, when you look at civil or municipal budgeting and large equipment acquisitions, you're looking at the life cycle of equipment needs to be, you say 10 years. The return on investment of purchase, even with the depreciation, needs to be in half the time of the life cycle.
Okay.
Okay, so you're looking at, are we gonna make the $109,000 back?
No.
Minus the depreciation, because we're giving ourselves credit for the depreciation.
In 5 years.
In 5 years, so basically half of it. We're gonna make the $50,000 cost back in 5 years.
It's what you have to pay for maintenance and fixing the old ones. That's probably realistic.
Okay.
Cause what you
And
do
here's
have
the
out there
thing,
is.
so here's the thing, especially with the greens mower and my blower. It's an ever evolving thing, like the 2 superintendents ago, she bought a walk behind greens mower. And now, when she bought it, it was worth quite a bit of money. Now, it's not worth anything, because things have evolved so much
Yeah,
in that
yeah.
short amount of time, that there was, unless they turned around and sold it back that next year, they weren't gonna make any money off of it.
So the last question I would have, and I'm not trying to take up all the time on the
You're
diet.
Nope.
You're good.
Is, if this had, Mr. Booty,
Yeah, I'm listening, I'm just thinking.
if I turn around and I go to you, or any member of the public, and I ask them, what would the public's opinion be when we ask them to spend $108,000 increase on your budget?
Well, they're all gonna say no. They're gonna say it no to any budget.
Okay, so that's the other side of the equation we have to take into consideration.
And that's completely understandable. That, I didn't walk in here thinking that
You get everything.
that I was gonna get everything.
Tell you this,
I,
I don't know if we've ever had a new piece of equipment ever purchased.
And that's a real fair.
2000
block there.
2000.
This may be the time to do it.
Well, and then 2000 was the last time we had a new piece of equipment out there, and that tractor is now not had good upkeep,
Is that
and
your
now,
other one?
and now sitting, waiting for Phil to come.
Well,
Because-
with what we've been paying in repairs and whatnot, that we could easily, I mean, if this is gonna be
Yeah.
such a large replacement, it could really take a lot of
And
cost
so
out of
these,
repair.
these 3 pieces of equipment also will allow me to do the things I need to do, as well as my guys, to get back to where the course should be.
Does it-
When I worked there previously, we were in the top 100 9-hole golf courses in the United States.
Okay.
Golf Digest, a publication, seen it. So there were plenty of people that came to this golf course. These pieces of equipment will help us get back to that point, which in turn will help bring more people to our course to make more money.
Right.
I understand that it is a big expenditure.
Did
I-
these replace the ones that
I don't
we
say
bought last year from Shattering?
Those are fairway mowers, completely
Okay.
different.
I don't say it's cost prohibitive, I think we're having, we need to
Which
seriously
is-
consider.
If we could buy one of the 2, which one would you pick?
Well, one of the 3,
Oh, no, you said your most important one was new greens mower or workman.
Well, the
So,
Cushman that she has what, 3rd gear, and that's
it only has 3rd gear,
So-
and the hydraulics don't work. So that would be my first option,
Okay.
absolutely.
What about?
And then my blower, and then my greens mower,
So that's the order you want to do?
absolutely.
What about clubhouse then?
Sorry,
I don't
I'm
know.
sorry.
Oh,
So,
I'm sorry, stop please, I have a question, I've been waiting patiently.
Okay, I'm
Shut
sorry.
up. I missed it, it's nice to be fair. My apologies, I'm not as familiar with all these tractors and what does what and
That's
whatnot.
okay.
I know
We're
at one
learning
point,
together.
at one point, we talked about how you have your, the machine that you need to have used to pick up the range balls.
So that is
Does
the
this
tractor.
bring that up then, if we do one of these, does that
No,
bring that problem up, or does
that
that help
is,
that problem?
that is something that we need. So the tractor, the one new piece of equipment that we bought 20, 40 years ago,
Mhm.
that piece of equipment is down, and we're waiting on Phil to come out there and see if changing a wiring harness to it will fix it, and then we can hook our
Then you can go
range
back to
ball
that.
hooker back up to it. And then it is also a backup tractor for our big deck mower.
So what we already approved for maintenance or to fix that, if that does fix that, then that helps that.
That helps that.
So then
And
it
to
would
be honest
okay.
with you, the Workman, I haven't seen it, up close, but we could put a bracket probably on the front of that Workman and use it to pick up range, so one person can pick up range while the other person is still mowing. Because right now, as
You
it
can't do
is, no.
Right,
If
and
we
that's
need to
a
pick
real
up range,
pain in
we
the ass.
either need to stop mowing,
Right.
unhook the mower, hook the range picker upper, then try to hurry and pick up as much range as we can to satisfy the people waiting for range.
Right.
Then come back on hook up our thing back and then go.
Sounds efficient.
It wastes about, in honesty, it wastes about 2.5, 3 hours of our day if it happens in the middle of the day.
Also said tractor has needed new tires for
Yes,
at least 10 years.
the new tires,
For this flotation.
they are
And expensive.
so weather checked, it,
And that's the one Phil's working, the one you said.
yes.
So realistically though, the biggest need at the course, if I understand right, is the irrigation system.
I mean, it is a need, yes. And that is another thing where, like, Dan had said before, we're not sure how much we don't know how to budget for that.
Right.
We just have no idea. These are just things that I have an idea on.
Right, I'm just
No, that's
asking
fair.
that, the true biggest need from what I understand though is fixing that. Because from what I understand, one of your people's having to spend a lot of time
So-
fixing sprinklers.
To circle back to that, we had John Lemon suck that, live well out. And hopefully that helped some of the problem. It's not gonna fix it.
Did it do a good job?
Are you
We didn't
talking
get a
this
chance,
over?
we didn't get a chance to see how well of a job, cause he did it Friday and then we got that huge rain. So I shut off my sprinklers till tonight. So we won't know.
How much did he
How-
end up sucking, do you know? Like how many feet? I don't know.
It was an all mow day for me, so I did not even see him. I seen his truck
I seen
over
his
there,
truck, that was it.
but I did not see him physically, nor did he call me. And like I said, it was an all mow day, so I had 0 seconds to go over and speak to him.
I just think it's, the initial cost is gonna be exploratory, and then once we find out what the hell is wrong.
Right.
That's the cost we're worried about.
So my concern is, I know all these things are a need at some point, is there a way to set up maybe budgeting? Like, can we take amounts of money and put them into like CDs to draw
Well,
interest?
here's the
raise
problem,
money?
this is just, running the city is just like taking care of your house.
Right.
If you put everything off, then it all falls apart at the same time. And they should have been buying equipment over
Every
the
year,
years.
once, over
Yeah.
We
time.
should have been buying
And-
decent equipment
Right, I'm
instead
not-
of
and now-
totally used equipment.
I'm not disagreeing with that, my only question is where we don't know, if the biggest need truly is the sprinkler systems, till that's drained and you actually see what's going on, we don't know if it's needing re-dredged out, we don't know any of that.
I will put money that it hasn't been dredged since the flood. And we pumped river water into it.
So
So
we're
I'll
probably gonna
guarantee
dredge.
you,
So we're back to the $30,000 we forecasted for the pump out of the pond.
At least,
Probably.
That's already approved. We just take those funds and roll it into the next year on a line.
Right.
Without impacting this other request.
Right.
So, Julian,
Yes.
I just got verification, so that citation from the Department of Revenue would have come in 2019 and went into effect in 2020. And to my knowledge, none of that money has ever been paid yet.
So we can look into that.
So, okay,
I
so
don't
we
know.
postponed the recovery by 4 years now.
Yeah.
I don't know, we'd have to look into.
Now we eat up that whole $180,000 request.
Well, but, I mean, I guess we'll have to, it would be worth a call to them to see, make sure we're not in violation, make sure we don't have fines, make sure that's okay if we just, as long as we make the payment that we're supposed to, we don't have to make up all of those payments at once this one year, so that maybe that we can
Question
say.
due on their budget line.
And
Right.
I think Adam told me that, Yeah, we were mandated 30,000 a year,
As long as you're
But-
showing good faith.
but there hasn't even been a good faith payment.
I think it needs to be at least just a payment this year, but I don't know that
We
it needs
need,
to
we
be.
need them to give us, an updated requirement and the city attorney to review the legal requirement.
Yeah.
Cause that is on the budget or the audit that
Yeah.
Gardner's
Right,
doing
and
right
that
now,
payment
and
process.
that gets turned into the state, so eventually somebody's gonna come
In
snap.
2022, I think there might have been something, but I don't know about last year.
I don't think last year there was one. I don't think there was one.
Well, I never signed.
Or at least it
transfer
was,
warrant.
at least
Yeah,
it was budgeted.
Right.
Yeah.
In 2022, it was budgeted,
Right.
whether it was.
I don't think it did, because that's when you guys, bought that tractor.
Yeah.
So
I think
then,
that might sound
so then
right.
it left 11 grand left if I remember.
So we could say yes to your $108,000 conditionally. Saying that if we don't have to go back and pay this bill,
Then we could do.
then
more
those funds will
consider
be
it.
in the budget, but it's conditional funding.
Well, and I think you guys you're presenting it as conditional, I don't think you
Right,
guys are
I
expecting anything,
mean-
but I think that's.
Like I
Right.
said,
Right now, our biggest determinant, we just need to know what's your most important, so we can go from there and.
workman and a blower.
Yeah.
So the $30,000 for the dewatering of the pond and that, you had said that it's in this year's budget, roll it over? I'm not seeing that anywhere.
If it's approved and we didn't expend it, we can forecast to roll it over, when we roll over, reconcile the budget to the
And
end
was
of the
that
year.
approval given?
If we
So
get,
it went through.
No, we have to do it, we have to go through this process and then go
Okay,
back.
okay.
no, we approved pumping out the pond,
Right,
which, wouldn't that be, wouldn't that fall under capital?
It's not, it's either outlay or improvement.
Well-
It's not improvement.
so
improvement?
capital improvement projects have to stabilize or increase the value of the asset.
Capital outlay?
The capital improvement project by statute also requires engineering assessment.
Right,
Right, I don't think it was capital.
So if we were to plug your approved dollar amount for dewatering that pond, it would increase this budgetary amount. by
Well, the
$30,000.
problem is it wasn't budgeted from
Last year.
last year.
Last year.
No,
Right.
no,
Yeah.
correct.
right,
So we had approved an expenditure that wasn't budgeted already.
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
Well, I
So
thought,
you're-
I
understanding.
thought
It's a
we budgeted
contingency
it
line.
on the wish list last year, I thought that was brought up when we put together the wish list.
I didn't know anything about this pond having issues last year.
No, we addressed
I
it
could've swore
in
Tom brought
April.
it up.
We addressed it in
No,
April
before
this
you
year.
even got
Yeah, I
on,
know,
yeah.
but I remember in April we addressed, April and May we addressed it.
Right.
And we
No, it was-
approved the work.
No, it was not.
Mm-mm.
It
You
was.
were on at that time, it wasn't, it was.
It
didn't
was,
talk
I
about
didn't
that
know
much.
anything about it until my interview for
The position.
this position.
Right.
And I believe, whoever was in there, I don't remember who asked me, but they said, what do you think about the irrigation system in the pond? And I said, there's water? And then they
Is there a
go,
problem?
they go, well, there's a problem, and I said, well, this is the first that I have heard of it, I don't know what you're
And
talking
then
about,
I
and that
came-
was in February.
Yeah, and then I came out after you'd moved over and I.
Correct.
took a seat and we toured the pond and we talked the pump house and the pond and all the
Yes.
systems and everything
Right,
else.
that's what.
And then the decision was made to postpone the work till the end of season,
Correct.
because we didn't want to impact season's effect on the greens with the heavy equipment.
Mhm,
Correct.
Yeah.
So now we're like, okay, that came in, we looked at it, we voted on approving that
Mhm.
work, but then we postponed the work until the end of the season.
Right,
This will be year 3 on
But that's
taking the
happening.
can down.
Yeah.
yeah.
Cause we lowered it in 2022, we lowered it down as low as.
I'm trying
we
to
could.
justify
So,
general fund rollover into a line to cover the project off of versus contingency fund.
But I think what you have for an idea to do that, I think
Yeah.
that's probably doable, I
Yeah.
think that's the
where,
idea of how to
where
make
do we
that
want
happen.
those dollars to land in the budget?
Right.
Do we need to create a line item for this project? Or do we want,
Where can we put it?
I think it's the 5.
No, I think what we need to do is we need to leave them, because it's previous year's work,
yes,
otherwise we gotta come up with a reconciliation.
Right.
Then we go, okay, when we roll over general fund, we tag it as a holdover contingency. And we have that expenditure, there's where the warrant comes from, the work's already been approved.
Where we didn't
So-
budget for it
so that's
last year,
gonna land in
we-
revenue
we
for
were able to
24,
spend it on
25.
last year's.
And then.
It's all,
create a
when it
line
doesn't
item
come in the
that's
budget with
reviewed.
the line item,
I think
it's, when we spend money that's not budgeted.
You got that, Dean?
When we pull money on transfer from the general fund, it's contingency money.
No, I think you're right. And we can verify that too,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
we're gonna meet with Mike, and we
Yeah,
can
yeah,
verify that.
exactly.
And if we don't have that right, Mike can help us figure out where to put it.
Yeah.
But at least we have it itemized and we
Yeah,
have a
and we're
general
gonna create
idea
a
of what
line
we,
item
to
in the
put it.
revenues before
Right.
it goes out for review and then.
Yeah, yeah.
So we'll just start that and make sure.
What do we
that
want that line
know
item
what's
to be?
happening, right?
What do we want that line item to be?
Pond.
Pond,
Just,
Yeah.
Let's
just
just
pond.
call it
Pond drainage.
pond repair.
Pond
Okay.
Okay,
No.
there's probably two other things you wanna discuss unless you see other things on golf. One, you might wanna look at wages, and the other one, the clubhouse is
Oh,
actually
yeah, the
personal
wages-
equipment expenses.
But we haven't got to clubhouse yet, we just
Yeah,
covered that.
so
So do you wanna
clubhouse
go
is
to
actually
clubhouse
on.
next then, and then
She's
that'll
at-
probably introduce wages
Man,
too?
this-
Yeah.
So, what do you want, who do you want to talk?
Or do you have wages to talk about also?
Well, I have wages because last year I was only budgeted $40,819. That is basically my wage.
Yeah.
So.
Your other grounds, what's the wages over?
So what do we need?
17, we're over $17,000 right
Well,
now.
part of your
So you
wage,
need to be closer to 60.
Like-
So what I did rough math figuring, and that was just at what my guys are getting paid right now. And maybe a part-timer next year, hopefully. I did 76.
Is that based on inflationary calculation? Or
No,
just
she
what-
said right.
No,
Just-
just what my two guys are getting paid right now,
Right,
and
your wage and a potential part-time.
So-
and a potential part-time.
You do
So
have
that
some-
would count,
$13.50 after January first is minimum wage.
That's
Yeah.
the number I'm using.
Yeah, that's why I'm
Right.
saying,
Okay.
you need to think about the new minimum wage.
Right,
Sure.
And the scales everybody's gonna deal with.
right, and that's why I budgeted more
Right.
than exactly what it.
So just, okay.
And Dan helped me
Now, you do have-
remember that we needed to,
I don't understand, do you have a part-time or seasonal employee that they self-wage cap because of their social security, or is that
Yes.
still the case?
yes, and he, yeah.
Do
And
you
he
wanna
helped
keep
me.
that plugged in, or do you wanna take that out?
No, he needs to be on my payroll.
We'll just pay what.
I will
they
not,
can pay.
no,
Yeah.
Can't leave.
I will,
No,
Okay.
no,
okay.
what,
We need to keep it.
Okay,
I will leave before he leaves.
okay.
So 76 you thought was
Yeah.
real,
I
real
feel-
fair in consideration. Sure,
I can make it work.
sure, okay.
I would rather have you have the right numbers or larger numbers in your budget versus
too
next year
small.
coming back going,
Yeah.
you're behind.
Right.
You know, what I'm not.
And I can go back and refigure them too, if this isn't need to be set.
I'm not seeing anything in it. Did I miss it? The payment for the loan on the clubhouse?
No, that is absolutely not in here whatsoever.
Yeah, that was the question I had for you, Julie, the other day when we talked about
Is that-
debt
That's-
obligations in our accounts, I didn't see anything on the
No,
clubhouse.
it was $132,000 building, and the last numbers I saw, we still owe, after 16 years, we still owe 118,000 or something like that.
Is that included in that 141 debt?
So there's the,
That's a separate.
we found those items for the payment on the loan.
We
Because we
found-
thought the 109 for a minute
I know,
was,
yep, no.
was the loan.
Gotcha,
Oh,
okay.
when we
And
paid off the
then,
check.
then we're digging around, so there is,
So,
So the loan that we found
Is
was
that
for the
stuff we can-
equipment, was for the John
So-
Deere, which is a yearly payment,
What do we
which
say
is
for-
coming up.
So-
I'm not
Right now,
familiar
it's
with
I
this.
don't think a decision has
other
been
one.
made yet on wages, they're just talking about the ads.
Right,
I don't think it's in here because
Do we
So
still
I
have
wanted to
that?
plug that in on debt service for the budget,
That's-
which I did not, but before we were done with golf, that was gonna be discussion item.
The debt on the clubhouse, do we still have that debt?
Yes.
if it's through Security First, then it's not showing on the bank.
You know who
It's
that-
Is isn't that note due, come due like in 2028?
2039. is what
The-
was
the
on
note
our
on the
audit
clubhouse.
from last year.
So we should be able to find more through our audit of last year.
Cause they refinanced it in 2018 and drug it
So
out
do you think,
to
do you
2039.
think the loan that you found is different, is not the John Deere, but the
A,
actual
to cover the
clubhouse loan?
clubhouse now, but we
Cause
also
that's
paid the
80,000
pay
still
for
due
the
on it.
machinery. I can't remember what we got.
You'd think they're different, cause there's,
Yeah, so did we not buy a machine for this?
Yeah, we bought
Cause the last thing I got from you,
a
Julie,
fairway mower maybe.
was debt for
We bought two at- two-
141,927.
This last year?
76,400.
No, it was
Oh.
wrong.
19,110.
Okay.
I don't,
Used equipment.
yeah,
we
the
bought,
last
I
numbers, like
think
when
we
I
bought
sent you the
an
bank
air
Yeah,
balances,
but you
right.
sent me from the
Right.
bank. These were the debts, the loans.
So, alright guys,
That
so
tractor.
we've got 8 minutes left, we haven't talked clubhouse at all.
Alright.
What'd you guys decide on wages?
She gave us an estimate at 76, we're just gonna hold it at that.
That's for outside only?
Just outside only, we're gonna hold it until we speak about this, and we'll come back to it after we speak
Yeah.
about clubhouse.
Now remember though, the one position was contingent upon some of the work in the winter time will come from the street department.
You want me to
who's
look at it, too?
Supposed to be helping with.
Right,
These are
right,
the
so
three
part of
that we
Amanda's
have.
Snow removal
So,
will be paid.
that was
taxes,
the
so
dumpsters
that-
that
Whenever
have been
snow
paid.
removal happens, my wage will be paid out of street.
Right, right.
The
So that is-
76,000, isn't that equipment?
I thought it was a John
Okay.
Deere.
And then that 19,000,
I don't remember what
I
it
don't
is
know
either.
what that
I
is.
do have the paperwork though. I have the paperwork for 3 of those, but I don't think any one of them.
Has an
is a
identifier?
clubhouse.
Okay.
It just,
Okay,
I
so we
think
may
that's
have,
separate.
that clubhouse debt may be through a different lender.
Maybe,
We need to
yeah.
research that again.
This
Alright.
Don't-
That's just
panel.
Yeah.
That way we can rack it up.
Missy, what do you have?
Okay.
What do you want?
What things are we needing? Like, what's your absolute need for next year?
I can run on a shoestring next year because everything's done this year. I mean, dream list, I would love some new kitchen equipment. Ultimately, I would love that water issue fixed, that where the drainage is draining into the building and causing cracks. It's not gonna float away next year, it ain't gonna go anywhere.
Oh, we're so close to the river, that might be just an ongoing issue too.
Yeah, well, the way it sits, the parking lot runs into the building.
Sure.
It runs through the building out into the creek.
The
I mean-
clubhouse sits lower than the parking lot.
So we need to re-excavate, re-slope? All the way
I
around?
haven't had an opportunity to shoot it yet, to really see what needs to be done.
So we can at least get,
Well,
that
I
could be
do-
something that's
I do
pretty
know-
internal and not
Where-
heavy cost,
that's
but we
kinda
can
what I
at
was
least get an
thinking.
idea.
She did ask me to put $15,000 in the equipment line item for her kitchen equipment that she's
Sure.
keeping in, so.
And I do
just so you
know-
that dollar amount.
Last year, Jay said something to me and he had an idea, so he might be someone we can discuss things with. Just throwing that out.
Concrete solution versus?
I don't think it was a concrete solution, I think he was
Just
just offering to help us figure out how to keep it from breaking.
Okay.
No, it's
No,
not
it was
a.
nothing like
no,
that,
no,
I
no.
think he just had a suggestion and
Yeah, it was just
Which
bringing
way to
in
move.
some more dirt, you know,
Yeah.
around the clubhouse, diverting the water away. You know, kind of make a stream go the other way around it instead of right into it.
So you
So,
said that was your only wish list, and we didn't really have a lot of others. Since you talked about being on a shoestring budget, do you think you have specific items in mind of how you can cut back or narrow it?
Well,
So that
because
it's more shoestring next year?
everything came in so late this year with it being such a mess, that, you know, I'm gonna have inventory to sell at the beginning of season, where I'm not gonna have to purchase that.
Well, you guys had payroll a lot earlier too, cause we approved you and Gina back in January, and normally you guys start a few weeks before April, so you guys had a lot of extra payroll in this year that we shouldn't expect next year.
No, I
We
shouldn't. We
Okay,
shouldn't.
so that should help.
We don't take
So
on
that
any
should be-
extra.
That's also an expense this year that probably wasn't considered or budgeted last year, that's gonna hit them hard because they went in so early.
And I think
They've almost consumed their wages
Right,
for the
right,
year.
I don't
They're
doubt
not
it.
gonna have about
With
$700 left.
2 new systems,
Right.
all new help, I mean,
Hardware.
it's been a nightmare trying.
Right.
2 new systems.
Well, we learned
Oh,
a
well, you
cash
learned the cash
register
register
to
and
start
then-
with, everything written by hand,
Right,
and then learning the new system on top of,
right.
it has been a nightmare for, I put in hours that I would rather not next year. I would really prefer working 40 hours straight and getting through.
Right.
But you see that realistic as, you know, a couple weeks before April, it not being nearly was its perfect. Well,
Yeah,
that'll
definitely.
honestly help a lot, so. Anything else before we get to
This
wages?
is Dawson.
I wanna ask if there's any recommendations from the board for how to overcome the shortfall in the budget.
I'm guessing get
Proposed budget.
financial statement.
Well, I mean, I still think that's a fair question. I mean, we're coming from the same perspective and we all have to figure out the same solution and, you know, we're all working from the same chicken scratch. I don't think that's,
To me, if we made 27,000-ish in 2022, I have seen nothing but more people the last 2 years out of that golf course. So, I'm sorry. So I can't fathom us losing less than 27,000. We've never had to ask members to set up tee times on the weekends before.
so it's a good problem. to
It's a
have.
good problem to have, but
Well, and this year we've had
and
just such
we
huge-
raised everything
Right.
out there across the board.
Good.
Well, and, yeah, the report was for last year, the 27,000 or whatever, and the previous year was actually more, but you bought a tractor,
Well,
so the
it
tractor.
covers the tractor.
Yeah, right, and you came out 11,000 something ahead, so,
Is there,
yeah.
I know that raising prices isn't necessarily the fix, but do you feel that we're competitive on prices in the clubhouse?
Now we are, that's a thing you gotta do gradually.
Right.
There's a
Do you
lot of
think we
people-
did enough this year to be able to
I
still do
think
it
so,
next
yeah.
year and still stay?
I
where
don't,
we-
yeah.
Do you think members-
We
do you-
cannot raise prices next year.
Do you
but
think
2
we
years
could
ago,
go up?
yeah, definitely talk about it.
Well, but if they need to start expecting it every year and we just make them smaller increases, I don't think that that's a horrible thing. But they just know that you look across the board, there's not anything that's not impacted on anyone's
Oh, no.
at any aspect that is not increasing. So right now is the time for it to feel weird and be different. But I think if we do it in an appropriate way where it's not very big, but we make it an annual increase, do you think that's something that we can?
Do we leave members alone and we go with
I mean, I'm
the
I'm
other
not opposed to
neighbors?
hammering tourists, but the members, you start losing them, and that's a tricky.
Right.
tricky
But like I
slope
said, everybody's I mean, it's across the board, there's not anyone who's not experiencing inflation at an incredible rate.
Yeah.
And so if we could somehow introduce an annual increase, but make it pennies, you know, just round more pennies, so that way it's well, that's not so bad. And then if they just kind of expect it to be an annual thing and it's not so bad, then maybe it doesn't have to be so extreme every 2 years, but it can be just a lot smaller and annually. But a thought to
No.
round around and just maybe see if people would warm up to that concept. But I mean, it's obvious, there's not a restaurant in town and not a business in town or not a household in town that's trying to figure out how the heck they're gonna cover even just groceries or the cost of food or fuel.
Well,
It's
you
all
got,
going up quite a bit.
you got 4 people right here that live in town and pay taxes that don't golf, but they're subsidized in that golf course.
Yeah.
And that's a concern of mine when you look at, there's an obvious budget shortfall here, and how we're gonna come up with that, and knowing that this thing isn't making money, but yet we're all supposed to subsidize this thing.
Well, I think we're at an awkward turning point too, or at least I'm in hopes of and hopeful of an awkward turning point, and that we're just not going down this continuous road of it being a battle between members and non-members. But I do think like what Amanda mentioned, we have a real potential of having some really amazing things in this community, and it doesn't stop at the golf course. And we're surrounded by hunting and fishing and all kinds of stuff, and we need to all figure out how to get tourists here and get them here. So I guess my request to the golf course as a whole and the board is to figure out how we need to draw other people in. So if we can get creative with some really early season tournament or something for next year, or whatever we can come up with to help subsidize all this, and so we don't have to take it out on members. I don't like the idea either, but, it probably needs to be universal no matter what.
I think, but another thing is the president of the board and people who operate the course, you talk about members. I think it's important to go back and inform your members, that you're asking for 100% increase in your budget. So they understand.
Yeah.
This is what you're asking for. This is your wish list. So when you're asking for it, and you sit down with the members, and you sit down with the rest of the board,
Oh, but
you tell them you're asking for 100% increase
members
in
have no
budget.
problem giving money. They might give it to the city.
Right.
Well, it's a city concern.
No,
And that's the real
100%,
challenge with it being
100% agree.
a city municipality. And
If it was a
city-
privatized
it's really- That
entity-
makes it a challenge.
Which may be a future consideration.
Yeah.
It won't, we can't use that course for private.
What
That land is,
What's the condition of the golf carts? I know they're getting pretty old too.
they're getting old, but they're still getting by.
I mean, there's still, what, 3 or 4 that are 2001 models.
We're down a
Solid
couple,
2001
but
models.
They still
there-
run
It's
good.
only 23 years.
The only thing, major stuff that I've had to do to any of them, and it's actually been the new ones, is replace the cambers on the front, because it messes with the steering. And those are, I mean, they're basically pot metal, so you can get a handful of them at Bauer Clunkers, and when Missy or Gina calls me and says, hey, they say this cart's driving like crap, you go down and pick it up, takes you an hour to change it out, and then you go back on your way. I know they haven't been preventative maintenance for a while, so that's something that I started this year with all of them, getting back to that, making sure the oil is changed every year, making sure it's on a fuel schedule. If it's got a fuel filter, we check it, make sure it needs done before it goes out for the season. When we park them this winter, we'll go through everything, make sure we put stable in it. That way it doesn't mess up any of the engines or any of that kind of stuff, and make sure.
So I know they're quite pricey, but is there a way that we could,
Last question.
Um,
We have to move on.
is there a way that we could,
We-
I don't know what kind of programs are out there, but is there like lease return, you know?
With the newer models, we could probably get some good money, but what we need to do, and what we tried to do 8 years ago, is we bought 4 every year for 3 years. Well, then, new administration, we got declined for the 4th deal, and that's where we're at, so. I don't, we can do whatever we want, but it's gotta be set in stone, and we have to come up with our own policy. After 10 years, do we rotate?
Right.
5, or?
Sure. Because
But right now, we're just gonna drive them until they fall apart, and then we're gonna be stuck.
Cause the old ones he's talking about, we started out leasing.
Okay.
All right, guys, thank you.
We needed to come back to payroll, didn't we, real quick?
I think
Or we're
we're gonna
okay?
have- we're gonna have to do some
We're
work.
gonna have to move on
Sure.
to part.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you for your time, and we'll continue working.
Park system looks like. What?
I'm just so disappointed that it
All right.
Can I just repeat recap on Gulf real quick, sorry I want to step out. So we're gonna add the one line item, which we discussed. We're going to use the debt service line to work in the payments on the debt to the city. And there was no proposed at this time dollar amount changes.
Yeah, we're pending legal
That's
guidance.
accurate. Well, I think the only thing that was proposed was maybe the wages, but we need to
And
reconsider
that'll be
that.
open for discussion.
Correct.
No notes.
Correct, yeah, you're right.
Thank you. Just wanted to
Good
make
summary.
sure.
All right, Parks is next.
So I am Jenny Nixon, and our president is unable to be here. He's working tonight. Scott Dubach feels really bad about that, but we have worked really hard with Dan to pull some numbers together. I would like you, just so you know, Edward Black Sheep is on our committee, Jerry Lemon, and Roger Campbell is an honorary member, and because of his role in the community and the greater community, his advice is stellar. You know, it's just so great to be able to bring him in. So that's our board. We are all brand new as of January. So we are learning this as you guys are. I'd have you start and let's just work through this and see if between Dan and I that we can address any concerns you may have. Come on over here.
Yep. You got my opinion.
This is huge. I mean, this budget, so we've got it broken into parks, pool, community building, and cemetery. I mean, there's so many things to be thinking about.
And your board has oversight of all those items.
As we understand, yes.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and just start with.
Yeah,
Parks
because
and-
we don't have a cemetery committee,
Right.
so then it falls under, yeah.
So we'll go through, yeah, park first.
So, do you want me to just give you an overview, or do you wanna look through it, or?
Yeah, where you at, where you were budgeted, and what you're asking for increase.
Sure, and these numbers are as fresh for us as they are for you, and I certainly understand that, you know, this has been an ongoing thing, but, I guess in that first section, so Parks, goes through the first, well, I'm looking at a different set of pages, but the one thing that I'm looking at here is the building repairs, the 6202 line. That one in particular, we have some buildings that we are looking at, adjusting, the fisheries, the fish hatchery, windows and doors and paint, to be able to keep that from being a raccoon house. We think there's some things that really have to happen there. And also, there's a brick building that needs a new garage door, and, I mean, would you say walk-in door?
Yeah, so,
Is that the same, the one out at the park then?
so the current park shop that is right there,
Yes.
just to the southwest of that is the brick building sitting right along the loop road across from the horseshoes. With potential equipment needs and stuff, we're gonna have to start using that as part of our operations. The doors need to be replaced. We
Is it
can't get in the.
storage or maintenance, or what do you use it for?
It's gonna be for equipment storage. The other building is powered and will be used primarily for the maintenance.
You have a plan,
So it's, what's that?
and your plan for the fish hatcheries building?
Fish hatchery building is part of the park board ask, and they're wanting to rejuvenate it, get it painted, maybe some new windows and some new doors. So that was part of their ask and part of the 55,000 on repairs buildings, which we had 47,145 in there, and they asked to up that so they would be able to paint and do some things on that building. And I know there's other thoughts with that building, so it's kind of open for discussion.
What's the board's intent for that building?
So I think there's a potential to be able to use it for people to rent. We haven't spent a lot of time thinking about what that looks like.
Rent for what? You gotta kind of elaborate.
So,
Probably small groups, farmers market.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's got
yeah.
it thrown out a lot of different things like
Yeah.
that. If we could start with the outside,
The
get
rock
some
show,
beautification
the-
done on it, the inside's a whole nother project.
I know
I mean, at this
this,
point, that building's rotted away.
it is.
And if we don't
it is.
do something with it, then we're gonna
Right.
have to tear it down.
And I know
Well-
this has been explored like 8 billion times, but we're not
What's
gonna
the
get
cost
listened
of
to
tearing
unless
it
we're the
down?
squeaky wheel. Has anybody contacted the state of Nebraska and asked them to be a part of that?
No.
Cause it's their former building, they're the ones that gave up the fish hatchery. Has anybody contacted them and asked them if they have interest in
No.
something new, they wanna reopen it, they'd like to participate, anything, just that Cause again, if we're enough of a nuisance, and they might give us money to give away.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
They've got it, we don't. So.
And I think as a board, that's one of the things we're looking at ways to do in the different sections. I mean, I know that we spent a lot of time thinking about it with the pool this year, because, but the parks realm, you know, the buildings down at the park, I think we need to take a little more time to look at, potential.
Because every building, every piece of property that we own is assessed value as an asset that we pay insurance against,
Yes.
liability insurance against. And our insurance went up 40% last year.
Yes.
And our recommendations is that we reduce our holdings portfolio.
And we have identified a couple that we think probably need to come down too.
Okay.
So, yes.
And then even out.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, so that was the big one I wanted to point out there. The rodeo ground additional line item is to help us adjust, track time and use, you know, from
Yeah,
parks.
I added the
employees.
rodeo grounds line item,
Yeah.
it's 0 in the budget now, budgeted for 0. But I really wanna see the activities throughout the years that we do spend on those grounds, and then potentially have another conversation next year.
The only way we're gonna make more money
MOU
is
is
if
up
we get
with,
people to town.
with the rodeo board next
Exactly where we
year.
need to be.
It would be time to have discussions,
Right.
and so we better start coming up with some
Right.
numbers and some
Right.
figures now.
Sounds
So
great.
0 as for the budget, but it is a new line item in the budget.
And at this point, without them being present, we won't discuss it.
Okay, yeah, we can't discuss what the rodeo board may wanna do or
No,
not.
but
Right.
there's
No,
still
no,
our
no,
grounds,
just-
so we can discuss.
well,
our
just
grounds.
location for what
the
you're seeing.
contract, they,
Yep.
their contract, they control
The ground.
the ground and what goes on there. So
And then-
at this point, we can go
Yeah.
anywhere without.
So let's bounce up the wages real quick, cause I'm asking for a $10,000 increase in that. What I did is took our 2 full-time employees for the year with 2 seasonals, did the math on the projected wages, inflation increases, everything like that. Wages are based on a 6-month period in the park. So out of that, I took those wages, I pulled 20% of the wages for that 6-month period out, allocated them to the cemetery, cause those are hours spent at the cemetery. That's the number I came up with wages, and that's why we're at the $10,000 increase, if you're wondering.
Okay.
And Julie, it's gonna sound like a broken record, because I think allocation of time spent in the different areas will help us be more effective in our budget.
Yep,
in the
so
future.
let's jump down to equipment, because this is a big ask for the parks. So the park board and me together are asking for new equipment down in the parks, starting with mowers. We know the condition of our mowers and the needs that we have there. I would still like to purchase 1 mower on this year's funds, and then potentially start a 3-year program with replacing the next, starting next year with the Super Z, and then continuing over the next 3 years, replacing the whole fleet. The park board has also brought a great recommendation, which I support, which need is another utility vehicle.
Yes.
We're running a 35-year-old John Deere Gator down there that we are just constantly repairing, and it's barely fitting the bill.
So you got a request of $38,400 for your equipment. Then you've also programmed in $45,000 for capital outlay. And you're forecasting $13,500 for capital improvement. What
Those
is the capital improvement you're looking at?
Those were budgeted last year, and they were not used, and I'm just rolling them over from the prior budget.
But have you identified what you intend to use them for?
Well, the capital outlay, no. Capital improvements, we'd like to do expanding in the road in the park, the loop road going around the campground, and maybe even do some work in the campground with those monies. But it's a rollover.
Okay.
It's just funds I did not want to lose.
Okay.
I'm gonna sound like a broken record tonight, is that if anybody stays the entire time, but I see nothing here for grant proceeds and donations. And I would like to make the request of every board that they make sure that they ask our community to be involved and that you're hunting new events, because we cannot continue to ask our citizens to pay for all of Crawford. The only way we're gonna make things move forward and start paying for all the stuff that we need, since we're so far behind, is if we bring other people to town and let them lose their money on us, and we appreciate it. So I would like to just ask to bring that up and ask for, attention to be brought to that, and that to be in your guys' goal for the year, to see what you can do to bring either grant funds, donations, and events that cover any part of that, so that you guys can be coming up with any bonus funds by the end of the year. That way we can, help you guys make some of these wish lists, make sure that they happen, but that's gonna be our key to grow and cover a lot of this stuff. Okay.
And expanding on that, I think that events need to be planned through the park board before it comes to council.
Yeah.
Once the park board gives their approval, then it's just simple, real quick vote in council meeting, yep, go ahead.
Sure.
Right now.
That way it's all coordinated through you guys.
Because like I said with the golf people, you're gonna be the ones that have to go back and explain why you want a 62% increase in your budget,
Yeah, I totally get that.
just
Yeah.
for this entity.
Well, and there's not gonna be a department that we're not gonna need these funds, and there's
Right.
not gonna be a department that's not gonna have such a huge increase, so that's why I'm gonna say again, get creative, and figure out how to bring people in, so that the community of Crawford's not the only one paying for these increases, cause that's how we're gonna get ahead, is if we bring people in and take their money.
One of the things that's been done in the past is to identify all of our park grounds as a park complex. And we have brought in funds for a big park complex. And when you add all the pieces together, it becomes much more impressive. What I'm hopeful that we can do is start planning, where do we need to go? What buildings do we need to take down, all of that stuff.
Sure.
We have not had enough time to be able to do this, because we've not had any
Right.
numbers from.
Now, I will say that I know our local chamber has met with, Northwest Nebraska, Discover Northwest Nebraska,
Right.
and tourism and whatnot. I don't think that that's not inappropriate for the
Oh,
park board to be a
absolutely.
part of that either, because I do think the park board needs to kind of work hand in hand with the chamber. You guys need to be kind of sister organizations and really help each other grow in that sense, because that's how we're gonna drive people here to pay for all the stuff we want.
In addition, we also have a trail,
Right?
the board to
And it's growing.
sit on for the trail.
Right,
And
it's
so,
growing.
again,
Perfect.
we agree.
Awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely.
If you go and you research grants.gov, federal, on the
Yes.
federal side, there are specific federal grants for park and recreational facilities, outdoor recreational facilities. If the board could assist the council and the city in seeking those grants.
And yes,
they-
and Nebraska Game and Parks
Yeah,
gives funds. So
Okay.
yes, I'm
Yeah.
certainly aware of some of those areas, yes.
Thank you.
thank you.
So contractual services, would that, be getting rid of those dead trees?
What line item is
800,
that?
it's,
Oh, 5,600.
5,600, it's $850.
We've got a number of dangerous dead trees in the park that are going-
Contractual services, the $4,200, we're currently under contract for, I believe it was 37 and some change this year for the weed spraying on all the outlying
Right,
areas.
we can do that.
That was projected
And that was a good
inflation and
deal.
bringing him into
Yeah.
contract again
Right.
next year.
Yeah.
Anticipate on losing that line item over the next several years, because if we're able to acquire a new UTV, some spray equipment, and then we advance our new park lead into an applicator's license, that lead will go away. But I had to budget that for this year.
And that wasn't an appropriate, it was a great item that or a great number he presented anyway, so we're not too
Yeah,
far behind.
so,
with it.
so that's justification of that $4,200.
So do we need to increase that so that we can get the dead trees taken care of?
Yeah, we could.
Yeah.
Wouldn't hurt.
Kevin dropped that big pine today, didn't you?
Yeah, we took out a couple today.
Are we
That
looking-
one right across from the Legion,
Yeah.
that's spruce?
Yeah.
Don't get me nervous, that's not the painting here.
So-
It's like, we had
Oh,
the
yeah.
equipment on
So
today,
are we,
it was-
the two next to the Legion, we are concerned about, so yes.
Are we talking about city manpower project doing it or contracting it out?
These two, we're both kinda nervous about the next two, correct?
I don't mind doing it, it's finding time to do it. So it won't happen right away, but this winter, if we find time to do it this winter.
On a good
it'll
one
get
to
done.
say, yeah.
So
Kinda
on
need
the
a
priority
budget
list
truck
right
to
now
do
is
that
down
down
here.
I did have to bring in a contractor once this year for that cottonwood tree down in Motorsports, but that's kind of an emergency situation, and I don't see that on a regular basis.
Do you see his contract level cost prohibitive or within reason?
Oh, within reason.
Okay.
He performed quite well for us, at a good price for what he did. He came in last minute and did what we needed to do right away.
Well, my concern is liability of the city.
Yes.
You know, someone that's insured to do that versus our employees and possible workman's comp.
So if we wanna
issues and
consider
all
that on like some of these whole trees and some of these
Yeah.
bigger ones, which that one I
We do
was
not
not
wanna make
comfortable
monsters,
even
yeah.
touching,
Yeah.
then we should probably consider additional $3,000 based on the cost. That we did.
Yeah.
That one tree went on the ground for, I think it was like $876, and then he bucked it up for us, we did the removal.
Cause I don't really see
So
this kind of tree.
that would
work.
cover us for like 4 of these monster trees if we had to get them on the ground.
I don't see this kind of tree work within their scope of work.
No.
No.
So if
We don't even have the
engineering it,
equipment to put something
we gotta
that
pay.
big,
Right,
so,
right.
and I appreciate that, cause that's something I did not consider.
I mean, if we owned a bucket truck and things like that, it'd be different.
You wanna go there?
I'm just saying, if we're
Really,
trying to
since
all
we're
that
talking
up.
about
Yeah,
the removal
and
of the trees,
3,000.
we don't want any stuff like coming forward where they had to remove all their trees, and now they have a naked park, so, I mentioned it a long, long time ago, we need to make sure that the park board has in mind a tree planting, kind of agenda and a game plan for that too, to make sure that for everyone that we remove, we're also making sure that we have game plans and, renewing the beauty of our park, because we have a very good board as well.
In mapping those trees, I could see that, you know, easily, and then.
Because we're kind of getting behind on that, is we've got kind of a gap going on between a lot of older trees and nothing to replace them. So if
Depending
guys
on
would
where
just
you
put
are.
that on your note. that
By
would-
the community building.
Right, right, and again, that could be donations or whatever it may be, so.
Which, but Jenny knows that, I mean, we can get
Right.
dirt cheap trees through NRD.
Right, that too.
Absolutely.
Programs, exactly, thank you.
Yeah.
Do we need to get an arborist in to kind of assess the conditions and the health of the trees?
Absolutely.
I would bet we could get our state forester in Chattern to come out and do some of that, so, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
So, what other things? I know you guys put together stuff, so
Do you-
do you
yeah,
wanna
do you
give
wanna-
us what you wanna go through?
Do you wanna go on to the next section? So
Do you
in the
want-
pool, there's some things.
Do you want any further definition on the equipment, what we're asking for, why we're asking for it, anything like that? Okay.
We know
These
that
are
kind of
two
stuff
mowers,
is fair
right?
wear and tear.
Yeah, mowers and then, utility vehicles.
Right,
Yeah.
Yes, and a couple little things, but yeah.
And then you did have a hose reel thing.
That's in that $38,000.
Yes.
The guys are dragging around over 1,000 feet, 100-foot hoses right now, trying to water everything. This can attach right to our quick couplers, we can draw out of the river.
What's the cost estimate on that?
$5,500. It's self-propelled, it's driven off of water pressure. It's gonna eliminate so much labor time, make life easier on them.
Sure.
And it covers a 250-foot by 100-foot window with one patch.
Yeah.
Comparatively, that's a nominal cost.
yeah.
I think just the savings in
So
labor
that-
will pay for it.
Yeah.
Unless you have any other questions in parks, that's about done with
Yes.
parks.
That's good, thank
So
you.
jump right into pools, that's next in the line, and
Yeah,
that
so-
shows you.
Yeah, so the wages is kind of where I end up starting, since we don't have a good deal for income. But we have had 4 employees for the pool, plus our manager, and so we just figured with the $13.50 for, the regular, employees, and then, I don't know what, our manager's making, but a little bit more, that's all figured in that 38,000. Did you add some more in there?
I did not add anything other
Okay.
than what you guys requested,
Yeah.
and that 38,000 was Scott's final number,
Yes.
which is a $20,000 increase on pool wages.
We spent a lot of money this year just because we had the kids come in a little bit early, they painted, you know, there's a lot of stuff.
Well,
We
and all of them
consumed
would be
70% of the
Yeah.
budgeted wages in the pool being,
Well, with paint and
I
everything.
know,
Yeah.
but
So we're looking at this from an aspect if we get anything fixed and it opens next year. If we're from, if wherever we sit, I mean, the engineers have kinda already come back with what they think we need to have, and that's a really large number for us to be ready to open next year. What would you like to see if we don't open next year for the budget for the pool? I guess is the question that somebody wants to talk about. Cause it's sad.
For the budget for the pool next year, my guess would be go with nothing, we can't open.
we take our capital improvements
Bingo.
monies, any,
Yeah, yeah,
You've already had your engineer assessment, and your engineer assessment exceeded your budget for capital improvement. So that's automatic disqualifier by statute. Now you have to find a different funding line.
So do we need to move that line item then, well, and we probably need to move it at this time since we already know it exceeds.
Yeah, we're estimated at over $500,000 with the engineer assessment and all the repair estimates from JEO Consulting, pursuing repairs and opening of the pool. It's
We're
gonna have to
north,
come
we're
from other
north of
funding.
600,000.
Huh?
We're north of 600.
Yeah.
With their engineering fees attached to
Right,
that.
cause it's a $60,000 fee of
Right,
engineering.
right.
So,
So realistically, we probably need to make sure that we have that version of a budget for the pool.
Sure.
Because it's not gonna
Yeah.
have a lot of what we have right here.
Or looking forward, I mean, actually last January, I was thinking, why are we not thinking about 10 years down the road?
So you want a sub-budget to the operating budget, or do you just
So-
want a
Well, I
budget?
think we need to have an A and a B probably.
so you're talking about 10 years down the road?
I'm thinking we need to plan forward, and we haven't done that, it's
I
not been
will
done.
agree with that, and I would like to see
So,
more of a 1 and 3 actually, because if we're sitting in a perspective or we're sitting in a position where no matter what, if we want to keep it, we're gonna have to spend a lot of money.
Yes.
So we need to probably look at next year being no large spending other than putting a committee together, what that committee's gonna cost us as far as, research, what they're gonna do to pull together, visit other communities or whatnot, and that's about it, because
so if you turn
it's
around,
gonna take some time to put all that together before we can consider it.
if you turn around and you go, okay, we have to completely take the pools out and put in new pools, and we need to forecast surpluses of income over the next, say, 5 years. Okay, we're looking at $2.4 million. On average, this is a statement coming from the previous pool manager when she talked to other communities, so I'm just going off Buffy's number. There's not a grant or funding resource at the federal or state level to grant that level of revenue without at least a 50% match.
Yes, yeah, and I actually looked into some of this early on, so I called my community development people and we talked about that a little bit, but yes.
So eventually what we're gonna have to be looking at is just right now the current costs and the current estimations within the next 1 to 3 years and 1 to 5 years. The city needs to be prepared to spend $1.1 or $1.2 million
Yes.
to match whatever the grant can be. And that's not if we don't get guaranteed the grant.
And that's to build a new pool.
And that's to build a new pool.
Well, whether we build a new pool or even or redo our old one with the suggested 600 and some thousand, in the next 1 to 3 years, you need to have a committee and you need to be making events and you need to be generating this money, because I guarantee with everybody being over, we're not gonna have the pennies left to, hand out an extra 100 or 2, 1 or 2 million. So ideally, you're gonna, and I hate to put that on the board, but really, you look at other communities that have new pools, it's all generated from fundraising. The majority of it is fundraising, and so that's where this board's gonna become really important, is you figure out how to generate some ideas and do some fundraising and, contact these other communities that have been able to pull it off. I mean, there's 2 other communities directly in the Panhandle that are comparable, if not, we're in worse condition than we are, and they have brand new pools. So I would be in their ear and, a lot, finding out exactly how they did the fundraising to guarantee that, because, once you start fundraising and doing enough, we've got enough larger, industries around here, you can start asking them to match what you've raised, and then you start making some, you start multiplying your funds fairly quickly, and that'll help us get to these matching funds a lot faster. If we could, as a community, if you guys can raise anywhere from 50 to 100,000, you go to Camco and be like, hey, we did 50 ourselves, would you match that 50, or you go to whatever else, and there's other, the railroad, there's ways of making that happen, and they're not gonna just give us money, but if we can say, hey, we raised 50, would you match that, they're a lot more likely to give us a lot larger funds. So that's another request of mine on behalf of the park board in that direction, because I think that's the perspective we need to be kind of looking at for the next 1 to 3, is no matter what, we're gonna have to come up with that big chunk that we need to match to get any money. We're not gonna be able to pay for all of this by far, but the city as a whole we're not gonna be able to either. So this really does need to come up to special events. What can you merge with anything else to make as a fundraiser for the pool, or, you know, to get other people, like I said before, let's bring people to town and take their money. We're a nice place, they should come visit, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There is no loan funding available to the
No.
city, we are strapped.
We're tapped out, yeah.
So, that's not an option.
Yeah. Community building.
Yeah, let's go on to that. I had to ask, but the wages, that we have there is based on our,
With the inflation.
with the inflation, yeah, built into it with our new employee.
Sure, I think that's fair.
That just transferred right in, so. Let's see.
Are the contractual services what we had asked, like service matters to do annually and stuff, is that where the contractual services is coming into?
For the
Like,
cleaning?
for the community building, is that what it is like the annual waxing and all that good stuff?
And, let's see, what do we got?
I think if there's heating issues,
Contractual services were a line item that I just carried over, it was
Sure.
budgeted, and I
Okay.
did not want the funds to disappear out of the budget,
Sure.
so I just carried them over. We don't have any assigned contractual services for that building right
Okay.
now, I just didn't wanna lose the funds.
Sure,
We just have preferred vendors and we do.
Yeah.
sure, okay,
Um,
good to understand, thank you.
let's jump down to repairs, building.
Yes.
We have the 47,720 in there, that is for the floor repairs. Now, I zeroed it out on the revenues for the 24-25. I think we need to zero it out on the 24-25 budget and plan on utilizing those funds before the end of the fiscal year and get them allocated.
Yeah.
So there's still a discussion on that to happen, but right now I left it
Right,
for
because it
discussion.
hasn't happened yet.
Yep.
I think that's fair, and I think that's, I
Okay.
think that's a
Okay. So-
reasonable goal, yes.
Yep.
What was the capital improvement you were trying to carry over?
Parking lot.
oh, yeah. Yes.
Yeah, we need to do something about the, where the trash dumpsters are located.
Yep.
Because Swan is doing the same route.
Loop, and it
Yep.
just is destroyed.
We've got the trash area and then we've got the failing parking lot. And I've watched it progress this summer, just with the few storms we have, now that we've got the settling,
Yep.
everything's saturated. It's gonna have to be addressed, so. Those capital improvements that are in there, carrying it over, and the intent is asphalt and something in that parking lot, whatever we can do with that $30,000. Projected cost for complete rebuild of that is close to 80.
Right.
But, you know, we can do some hard patching through the forest area and then some seal coating on the rest of it.
And that's just to
overpaint.
do what's already there, not past, correct?
What's that?
That's just to do what already exists, not past there to the additional parking lot we use as a parking lot.
Existing,
Okay.
yes.
If we did gravel on that additional parking lot, or what the baseball field uses as a parking lot, would that affect what you guys are doing, or
No,
take away
no.
from, that would just help?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
let me ask you, I'm trying to figure this out here real fast. When we look at contracting,
Mhm.
what's our cap before we have to take out multiple bids?
30,000.
Okay. So,
This was a number that was already in there, this
Okay.
wasn't a number I generated.
no, this
And
is
it's a
just-
number I didn't lose, and that's
Guard
right where we
this
could
number.
put it is in
what
that
I'm saying
asphalt.
is, we need guard that number.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. This way we can, if we need to, sole source it.
Yep.
And we do not need engineer requirements
Correct.
to do the project.
Yep.
So the 80,000, is that, replacement of the whole parking lot, or is that milling off? of
That's
an inch or
replacing
two?
the very bad damaged spot right down, doing subgrade work, patching that, and then doing a 2-inch mill and overlay on the rest of the parking lot. Not a complete replacement. We'd be in the neighborhood of 140 or so for that.
Think it would hold up better if it was completely milled off and, take an inch or two off and then resurface, yeah.
If we're able to get hard patch and totally replace the very bad section, yeah, I think we'd get a solid 10 years out of it. With the use it gets, we get 10 years out of the rest of it,
As
if
long as
not
we can
15.
redirect that traffic.
So, I guess my question is Isn't the state supposed to inform us that there's gonna be a hot plant, in the area so that we can plan for it in the next budget year?
Isn't that
We
what
got
the
no
thing from
notification.
Ohio?
Yeah,
That's
but we
it.
got no notification that I know of. We should have known about this
Previous, so
time
we could
last
schedule
year.
it.
I didn't even know
Before
until-
the draw, the
Yeah, I
budget.
didn't until I
Right.
go through it.
Yeah,
They came to the water plant asking to be able to fill water trucks for the usage of that project, and that's when I first found out about it.
are they drawing from us?
They are drawing
Are
some
we
water.
billing them for it?
We are not billing them for it. We have no cycle, no method, no tool to bill for it.
Are they going out, what size tanker trucks are they taking the water out of?
5,000
Vari-
gallon.
Variable, semi, and tandem, so I think their small one's probably 3,000 gallons and their bigger ones are probably
We need
5.
to start accounting for their loads, so we can go back and bill them for that.
Okay.
Or if they,
Yeah, cause we're just helping them
Or if they-
create a great
right,
profit
so-
margin at our expense and stuff.
and that's an expense they've calculated in their work
Right,
project,
it's
that
in
they're
their
not
budget,
paying
it's
for.
covered, yeah.
So,
I understand
if we
that.
go back and we go,
Right.
hey, you've used this much water, and this is the rate, we would like you to reimburse us for it, and if that's not forecasted in your budget, how about helping us back with some hot?
No, but I think that's fair also to go at them at this time and say that we have that posted and we have it available and it's supposed to be self-reported. They know what their trucks can carry and they know what they're pulling away, they should be self-reporting that.
What are
The
we talking
ranchers
about?
that draw off of it are aware of that, and they're
Right,
supposed to
right.
self-report.
They're
They
supposed to be,
they are reporting that, I've been keeping a
the
log of
road
that.
guys have been
The road guys?
self-reporting.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So we do need to
Every
technically
every
bill them
gallon
if
of
we,
water,
if
they're
we
gonna get
have it.
charged for it.
Yeah.
Once they're done with their work, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely, we're gonna bill the hell out of it.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
And do we have a rate and everything in place for that?
It should be
Yes.
on the, on the
If it's not
self-reporting.
contractual, it's gonna be the municipal rate.
Yeah, it's gotta be. If we don't
Is
have
that-
that
is that-
specific posted, would you let us know so that we can
We
make it
don't have that
specific
specifically
posted?
posted anywhere. All we have is
Call this number. if you
water,
need water.
bulk water can be purchased by appointment.
Okay.
That's it.
Maybe
Purchase
that
is
needs
the
to
key
be-
word.
It
Well,
doesn't
and it
say
doesn't
purchased,
purchase.
it just says call this number for both.
Okay.
We
Okay.
probably need to adjust that section.
Out of that fire hydrant, is that raw water or treated water?
Raw water,
Okay. So it's not as expensive for us to give away, it's
It's
just piping
still-
it from down here up to there.
It's still free.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll see what we can do.
Subsidized by all these people right here.
Okay.
Thank you.
I had quickly a couple questions.
Sure.
For community buildings, so as with anything, we have to try to make a profit or balance. Would you guys be willing to come up with maybe price increases, what you think is correct to go with renting a community building?
We certainly can look at that. We did that when we thought about pool pricing this year. Thinking about, what everyone else charging and the fact that Chatham's come over, but yes, we can certainly look at that as a community building as well.
I mean, prices on everything go up.
the other problem we had and we did address as a board was that it's really almost impossible to even find rates for these buildings and
Well, if you talk to the city hall, they have an actual rate for that building, what it
It's
costs.
just a
Yes.
book.
Yes.
It's just a book, yeah.
Right, and that's what I'm saying, like, we want to expand our section of the city website.
Sure, I think
And
that's
we've been working on
excellent.
that, we've
Well,
just been,
And I think
we've
it
just
needs
been
to
so
be,
deep in the weeds and everything else.
yeah. No, I think
No,
that's
yeah.
along the right lines, and again, if that building's not paying for itself, we need to be advertising, pushing it, asking for events to be there.
Absolutely.
Contracting with local areas, or see if they wanna come and rent or whatever, and, we need to push that out there, so, again, we need other people to pay for our stuff, please.
Well, and electricity and heat and cleaning and all that costs
Take
money,
care of
so
it.
we gotta make sure we're coming out at least even on those expenses.
How are we on figuring out how to get that third air conditioner up and running? Nothing?
Nothing.
Did we have fire guys come to look at?
Not at the old one, that's been down since before I even started. So-
Honestly, we just
Even-
recently got all the heaters on board.
I thought it was
So,
two.
I think it's one of those
Which
things where we
those
thought
are-
it was okay until we mentioned, oh, it's hot again.
The
Yeah.
two
We
on the
didn't have
north
to.
side are 2 years old?
Yeah.
2 years old and working double time to keep
Right.
that cool in this heat. We had furnace out there last week, cause we're condensating up, so.
We might ask them
So
to do an
that-
assessment.
Yeah,
That could be
let's throw that as a potential on here.
a budget.
Well, the furnace on that south end of the building, that one's done.
The furnace is?
And it,
For the heat.
for the heat.
Andy
thought-
knows about the,
I thought we-
It was supposed to.
It should have been
be that
replaced.
it ran, no, that it and the new furnace were supposed to work together to provide more efficiency.
But
There-
that, the part that's in the back was.
so we
supposed
have
to-
Right.
3 units in there.
That's right, there's
Right.
2 up in the balcony,
Yes.
and there's
One
one up
back.
next to the stage.
East of the stage.
Yes, the
Yes.
one back by the stage was supposed to be replaced.
Yeah, because they
They
red tagged
approved
it,
that, yes.
because the, manifold was cracked on it, right?
Yeah.
It was
And
leaking
it's still
gas.
sitting.
We got an estimate on that, didn't we?
And
We approved it,
We
yeah.
approved it to be replaced.
We need to get back out for assessment of work order.
Yeah,
Okay, so that needs to be.
we need to find that in the
looked into to
minutes and see where that,
Right,
what
that
got
was sometime
approved
this
on that.
winter.
Yeah,
No.
it's at-
We'll,
it's at-
we'll have,
it was-
we'll have to.
He was
discuss
on the
that
council
one.
at the time.
Yeah, that was up. that was-
Yeah, so
It was like April, May.
Guys, we'll have
That's
to
not a
discuss
decision,
that.
Shane, we're asking.
No,
you
I
just
know,
to
And
get
that's
that
what I was
money.
telling
Part of
Julia
our
too,
budget.
that should be a new one on that.
Well, it is a question
It is
Out there.
a question of whether it
So
needs to
whether
be
we will
considered on the
forecast it
budget
into
though,
next
so if
year.
we can prove that it, because it's already been done, or it needs to be done because it needs to come out of this year's, then we cannot consider it for next year, so that's fair.
And while we're getting it replaced, then let's figure out why that, other AC isn't working, and give us a cost estimate and get it to the council meeting.
Before we end up.
Before we ruin another or air conditioner, you
Yeah.
know?
But I think that's realistic to do, like soon.
It's been approved, it's wonderful, and have them take it from 20 feet in the air, put it on the ground.
Well, there's liability in that, because it's a public facility, you don't want the public in there
Okay,
getting to
I
it.
get that.
And the other
That's
one's
probably
enclosed
why
in a
it's
room
located
behind a
as it's
locked
located.
door.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I think a little room, I mean, there could always be options, but it's 2 cents.
Okay, is that the community building?
Yep,
Yep, cemetery.
I have a question on the cemetery.
Yes.
How long do you think that old water tank's gonna sit up there before it falls over?
I'm amazed that it's still there and working, but, believe it or not, it's had maintenance on it. It's been repainted, we're not having any external rust on it. So that's
No,
something,
I'm talking about the old water tank.
oh, the old one?
Yeah,
It needs to be removed,
yeah.
yes.
And then we're talking about crane.
We're talking about a crane and
So,
some kind of fabricator or something out there with that kind of equipment to get rid of that. Or we surplus it and, see if we can
I
get
was just
somebody
thinking,
that
ask
wants
somebody to see
that.
if they want it, I didn't know if that was a
Correct,
possibility or not.
and then we see where that goes from there. That's kind of what I was thinking before, but,
so what about putting it into, line 11,6700, other, and noted as, put a number in there and estimated demo?
I'm trying to
Taking it
avoid
down.
using the other lines on any budget because it's like a catching mitt for everything, nobody knows where to put, and then it's hard to get accuracy on the budgets. So
Well,
I'm creating
it
new
is
line items as
So
we
Technically
go.
part of
plug it in.
equipment.
But we can do a new line item.
Well, I don't say that, you're gonna talk to people who run G-Works in the budget, but they're gonna say whether they can plug another line in.
New line
Do
item,
it, yep.
water tank.
Yep.
Okay.
Old water tank.
Old.
Old
I was
water
just thinking
tank.
that.
Removal of old water
Thank
tank.
you, Chris. Old water tank.
Still not sure that I would trust if we surplus that,
What?
somebody to remove it.
What are you looking for
You
capital
can, you
outlay?
can make within the bid licensing or whatever.
$5,000 for capital outlay, what do you?
It was budgeted and I just moved it over.
Okay, so we're just.
Didn't wanna
adding-
lose those funds.
Okay.
Was not used and just moved it over.
This would be another ask on figuring out if we're charging correctly for cemetery plots.
I don't know if it's what we're charging properly for plots, but not charging properly for maintenance, you say.
Well, it all figures in the,
It's a
Perpetual
single
care.
charge.
It's a one-time
Yeah.
fee
Right.
for
Yeah.
maintenance, and it's like,
Well,
It's $250 to get your cemetery plot, I believe.
it just could be something that's, if you guys wanna take the moment to look over it and make sure that we're considering everything that we need to be considering with that one-time payment, to see if we need to reconsider.
Because ideally,
Shattered's around $500.
ideally, if you look at the number of plots in the cemetery and you look at cost per plot versus the cost of maintaining the whole area, I mean, we're asking $250 a one-time fee, but somebody's keeping mowing that grass for how many years?
Oh, yeah.
And the difference between us and Shadron is they actually water the cemetery.
Yeah.
Ours is a prairie cemetery, we supply water for those that want to water graves,
Well,
but we do not.
but we used to water, from what I understand, back when we actually had a cemetery first.
According to-
What
yeah.
they did all the time. So I mean, if at some point people wanted to go back to that, we'd have to figure costs and everything.
I think we'd
It's
have
a
to
little late,
We'd have to introduce a
those,
resolution back to
those people are dead.
No,
Yeah.
no, I'm
That's
not
what they're
saying,
concerned about, because their graves are being watered. Sorry, that's not.
Yeah, I think we'd have to go back and adopt a new resolution saying that change would have to happen versus voluntary maintenance of a plot that the city would assume all maintenance and then we'd have to increase fees.
I just was curious right now if we're charging enough.
We need to secure the services
Yeah.
of a surveyor.
One, I don't think those have been
And-
changed for quite a long time, so it's probably realistic to be looking at what it.
Well,
would be appropriate.
one portion of it that was donated has not been surveyed. I don't know what that cost would be. The two that I, have contacted don't do trailer parks or cemeteries, so we're gonna have to.
They're probably more
Keep
challenging,
working
so
on
it's
that.
gonna probably be harder to find somebody. Would that be something that would have to be covered under capital outlay if we had somebody survey that? Would you think
Or
$5,000
professional
would-
services, I don't know where it needs to get
Well,
funded, but it's,
do we have here, if we
Contractual
find somebody
services.
that we can have
It's
that
gonna be
covered?
contractual.
I'll work on it.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, and that's not one that I had
No,
even
that's not
registered
one
on my
I was.
radar, so.
Well, I hadn't thought to,
No,
when we
but
were
that's
doing
good.
all this,
Yeah.
that,
Better to have it budgeted.
yeah, it just popped into my head right
No,
now.
that was a good one,
So,
that was a great one,
think
thank
of
you.
that.
We're certainly looking at, the expansion and roads to those expansion areas. That was one of the pieces that we did discuss.
Well, that's the other thing is, the main road in can be budgeted off highways and streets. The ancillary roads in there and around the cemetery itself can be budgeted, has to be budgeted within the cemetery.
And I'm asking $3,400 this year for additional gravel for the cemetery for those roads. And when we get to streets, you'll see my answer.
Yeah, I get it.
What's the thought on all those, trees that are encroaching on the roads?
So all the trees that are encroaching on the roads, we are slowly removing. We've been removing when time allows. Some of my wage increase in the cemetery is for winter months to go out there, and that's the great time to remove those trees. Potentially, the majority, except deciduous trees and a few pines, will all be removed off the roads.
We're not taking out any of our windbreak out there.
No.
Now, the problem with those, is that my understanding is they're covering up quite a few.
They're covering up headstones, and now we have roads that are being diverted into plots to go around some of those trees. It just,
Yeah, okay.
you know, unless we just shut down operations and focus on that for a month, we've gotta just
Right,
keep
right, right.
going it.
Just keep
In the last year, we've removed about 30 trees, which is quite a bit,
Thank
quite a
you for
bit.
that.
We've removed
Sure.
a few whole rows, then we've come up with a method to remove stump and everything at once, cause they were just cutting them down, we had stumps everywhere.
Still a
No
problem.
longer, they're all coming out at once, total removal. And then as time goes on, we get a little bit better at getting overseeding and get some more things done in those areas. But the $3,400 ask under gravel is for what we're discussing right there, those artillery roads and the main road going in, we'll talk about when we get to streets.
And Jenny, just to be an annoying reminder to remove moving trees, so if we need to remind to assess where we need to replant to make sure that we've got, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, we
Just
really need to
annoying reminder.
consider a whole windrow on that west
Right.
end.
Sure, thank you.
That's gonna do a lot for the maintenance of the cemetery
Right.
Sure.
and labor hours.
Anything we can do, yeah.
Maybe the north and the west.
North end, that'd be even better. West is the biggest intruder at this point.
Right. Thank you.
Any other questions on cemetery? Those are the two biggest changes in cemetery labor and ground. Yep.
Now, I'm sorry, real quick, just popping or jumping in my head. You talked about mowers for the park and the cemetery. Pay for part of that, or is that already taken into account, split in part of the cost of those?
I did not
Did
take
the
that into
cemetery pay for
account.
it?
I considered it several times.
I didn't know if
But,
that made
you know, I
sense, or-
thought, should we really do that? Should we not do that? And so I just put them all in the park right now, but that's a consideration we
Or
could do if you
moving
want.
on, okay. Well, obviously the cemetery's not making that much anymore, but if we get this more stable. we
It
could
was
look
not, and I
into
was
doing
trying
it
to
in the
keep
future.
bookkeeping a little bit easy for this end, and
Understandable, we're
splitting
in a
payments and
difficult
all that,
time.
so.
Sure, no, I just wanted to make sure if we could do that, or if we had money hanging that needed to be spent. Just in case. Thank you.
Alright.
That's what we have for you guys.
So
Thank
thank
you.
you
We
for
appreciate
coming
you
so
coming.
much.
Yes.
A lot of work, appreciate it.
No?
Thank you for coming.
Thanks, Roger. Appreciate it.
Do we need a 5-minute recess for bathroom or anything?
I've got to move for a minute, yeah. Where's the restroom? Do you know?
Oh, it's back there. There, blue man. I'm a big fan.
No, I don't believe that I can share that.
With who? Not until we finalize it.
I can't have one now, everybody else has one.
Oh, to review and make the presentation?
What?
What, to review and make presentation?
I just wondered what everybody else is like, because I had ones that you don't have to.
They're board members, Lila.
The board and the department.
Sorry, that's okay.
Trying to just walk.
Well, technically, this is not.
She actually can have access to it.
She
It's
can't
an open
have
meeting.
copies, but I do.
It's an open meeting, they can view it.
Yeah, okay.
They can get a copy, whatever.
Yeah, I would, as far as I know.
It's
we're-
not confidential, it's a working
Meeting,
copy.
she can
To
look
make
at
sure
it.
that everything's closed up and after.
It's a working copy. Maybe she's got some.
I'm looking out for him. Okay. He came in, actually, that day after I worked.
Yeah.
Cause when
And I
I,
appreciate your insight, you've got.
Tony came in.
So thank you,
And he wouldn't let him in.
It's one thing to know it and not share it, but I
Yeah.
appreciate you being very
I went
vocal
out.
about, even if we're slow, I would
No,
much
that's
rather
no
be
problem.
slow and thorough. So I wanted to thank you for your insight, that means a lot, no, really, because not everybody can bring all that to the table, and I really appreciate what you're bringing to the table, so this is good, this is what we're working for, what we're
I
just
showed you
very
that.
detailed,
Yeah.
more detail, and everybody at the table understanding.
Exactly.
Nobody did last year.
Yeah.
We didn't.
But I add a little
This is so
humor.
good for what our future is. So-
it does, it is, but we lost it, we lost it. That's why I put it back in the board. You need to go back and tell why you're asking.
But I think this is useful to get uncomfortable, and
Yeah.
that way they understand that this is what we're gonna expect in the future, and this is.
It's still
yeah,
changing the
right
process.
direction.
No, he's great.
Well, but this is where it
I
needs to go, and this is what should be for a long time, but it just has
Well.
never been, so if we need to be uncomfortable for a while till everybody gets their training wheels and figures it all out, I think we're in the right direction, this has been really good.
Yeah.
We need to insist to Shane that any employees that are here in official capacity are getting paid for this.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, we didn't already had that discussion.
Good.
Okay.
We're gonna see one for.
When they first,
Yeah, we already saw, we already saw.
Thank you, Bert.
when they first
Before
came
you
in, I
went
talked
to
to their boss.
This sounds like, we're paying again, right? We're paying for people. I can put this dollar check to swap.
They needed to walk.
Yeah, for
Go to
driving,
Swan.
for driving over here.
Yeah, I'm like, cool.
Oh, I will say, I went to that special civic development.
They have to rest. Now, because I talked to them, I have to all their
Travel, stipend.
I went through this call.
That's like 8 times what I should council. Okay, sign me up. I mean, I do have to read like 5 books, I'm not excited about that, because I'm not a reader.
The minute I see anything, I gotta shut it down. And I was like, that's exactly, I was like, and I.
Excuse me? I'm not a board member of the board.
You guys can try to find someone else to do it.
Okay, let me work one up for you.
And that's-
I'll hook you up a couple of them. Well, right, because you're in that balance,
Yeah,
where it's important to stay in that balance.
yeah, exactly.
No, I hear you, because I never know when I'm gonna get thrown up to another level, and we're always like in between or
When I
really
just,
close.
I just got a solicitation for fulfilling a contract to the Air Force.
Is any of this
To go to.
helping, or are we just being a pain in the ass?
Helping as far as
I don't know.
discussion? Oh, no, I mean, I think we're, making some good
All
progress.
expenses paid.
Well, I mean, the thing is, what it comes down to is, okay, here's the wish list. Water, sewer, streets, most important three things in town. Guess where? Guess who gets the increase? The rest of them have to fight over whatever's left.
My uncle used to make fun
So-
of time, but I never thought.
I
I'd
went
like
to
to
a shop.
process.
North American High School, half the Air Force contract, and then they sub.
This is what sucks about,
They sub to, and the other half they
for
say,
40 years, the can's been kicked down the road on the whole town.
I mean, I didn't know that before.
And now we're trying to pick up the pieces,
Are you available?
see where we can go, you know?
And I go,
And
yes, you're right. And then I call up.
in debt to the
guy who's the training manager, who's a former colleague.
stupid how in debt the city
And I
is.
go, there, I'm available.
I mean, well, and this is all revealing stuff to us. That's what I need to have, a lot of this stuff you know.
I didn't know until I actually saw the audit
And when I came back
from, and that would have been the 22 audit, right? Yeah, 22 audit.
That's it, next 3 days.
So,
5 days.
in September, I'm guessing when we see the 23, 24,
In 10 days.
It's,
We have.
or
there's
22, 23.
there's gonna be a lot of care and tailoring now.
Right.
I'm gonna sneak off our tutor, I dropped a cigarette, I should have
Got
done
in March
that.
of 16. We started running the business, we had Conrad.
You guys next?
Yeah, I hope so. Conrad, I understand the concept of like, not knowing what day it is and not sleeping. There's a part of that was just a floor, I just remember being very hard.
I've got notes in my proposal packet, all of them.
You've heard the other stuff.
Well, I've been taking notes. You don't have the numbers.
That's why we're having council meetings here, we're trying to increase the number.
Conversation hasn't started yet.
Until.
It's gotta help, right? Having meetings
Is
here.
the last week of September, first week of October.
Plenty of time to feel like you're maybe back to a little bit normal, or at least adjusted to the new normal, that's the better.
I've gotta go to, Joint Base, Charlotte, South Carolina, and I'll be there for 5 days. And then I have actually 4 days, and then I have to go down to Paris Island, refocus, then go Paris Island, do 2 days Paris Island, and then I've got.
Is that just like PE then, to try and keep up on what
No.
standards are and what?
Well, they require 60 hours of continuous patient training every 2 years to maintain their national record.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm not.
When are you doing this?
Last week of September, first week of October.
No.
I just did San Antonio, I just did Joint Base, Lackland, and
And
I
there's.
was half expecting you to say you could be on the same time I was, and you'd be the only council.
Well, we might make it quorum, so we couldn't do it anyway.
No, because you told me last week, so I had a contract offer during that time, and I turned it down. Cause I didn't wanna go all.
That water is up to your knees.
I drive over there.
I just wanted to go back to Maine.
You see our camper?
Yeah, I did, but they called up, they said, well, if I was to go water to, Joint Reserve Base down here for Air National Guard.
This?
Because they have an active duty.
Oh, that's the.
National Squadron, or recertified. And
This is all the way back, so
I was
that's
tested,
about,
and then they're
that's
like,
about 4 foot.
they wanted to jump into their exercise. They wanted to parachute into their exercise. And I was like, that's the next day for
So
me.
like I said,
Turning my
pump that water out, send it back through, it was coming back out.
Jams refreshing.
We weren't running out of water.
I would have to jump,
It's about
jump,
40
water sled, and then make the jump itself with them. because I'm gonna do their evaluation.
Here, you gotta know what you're gonna do.
And I was like,
Yeah.
I don't want,
It's
I don't want to do
just-
that.
it's just-
So I called the president of Montana.
You want me to what?
Oh, no.
I'm sorry, I don't have to deal with my schedule right
It's
now.
being,
Did I mention I haven't been sleeping? I don't know if my mom's gonna know.
it's been 11 months.
It's ridiculous, cause it is water, it's water and sand, it's just, it's.
I jumped to conclusions, so that's.
So,
So,
all of that.
I was just like.
And even then, that's a lot sometimes to
There's a
just come
guy,
back.
there's a
I don't do height flying.
There's a PA who just contacted me right now, Jack Hospital, who is a reservist.
Is that the new one that you just
Yeah,
got?
he's the new guy.
Cool.
And he wants
He
to,
looks great.
he wants
I'm
to,
throwing codes every
do
other
the
day,
same kind of training
and I've got
locally.
one pump
So the guys
screaming
are
for its
very
life.
close.
Hey, that's extra revenue for
It's
me.
like,
Yeah.
no.
To shut down, yeah, to shut down the clear
Just
well,
because,
we shut it down, we
I don't think he has
did
any-
disinfected everything, we have to.
It's a lot to put together.
well, because he wants to.
Can't just
like,
shut it down,
little
we have to
firefighters.
fill the tanks back up, so we'll go
Then
back
you
in
gotta get
tomorrow, we
connected
can
with
shut it down
Joe
for
faculty
6
in the
hours.
state of
Then we have
Nebraska.
to kick it back
That's a
up.
lot of.
And
So
also-
also gotta worry about it.
I like DOD contracts, because I'm good on DOD contracts because I'm already
It's
set up.
Right,
it's
right,
also
right.
like 50
Not
degrees
rain,
out there, so I'm worried about hypothermia.
No, I know, but it's a solid enough solution with the water that it's all, looks like it's all right. So if you turn it into a liquid solution.
No.
That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing.
Well, you were talking about bucket brigade.
No, I told him he was insane, because we had talked about that, like, our first plan, we just thought it was a little bit of sediment. We were gonna. Take up the buckets.
Somebody grab some.
Well, you're gonna have, you two are gonna have your hard. No.
I'm gonna need at least 24 hours. I came to the meeting with my own slippers on, but I don't like them.
He first was talking about.
Yeah.
I'm a little discouraged, to be quite honest, with the pushback. Yeah. Major pushback.
Oh, terrible, I didn't even notice.
Take no responsibility for the great problem.
I feel horrible because I voted to approve the waste.
Are we good?
Yeah, let's
All right, let's get
continue. Let me restart this.
Hi, lovely ladies.
Good evening.
Welcome to our party.
You're paying.
Thank you for hosting. You have prices?
I haven't paused it. You should be able to restart, right?
Yep.
Alright, continue. Alright, we're reconvening. Alright, library.
Good evening, council and mayor.
What number is library?
1200,
The very next.
12.
1249 through
Cemetery.
67.
How can you increase revenue?
I have ideas, but let's.
Do you have a basket? Would you like to pass it around the room right now? I have a drawer. We are in your library.
Alright, library. There we go, sorry.
Well, we can certainly go through line by line. The board and I have been keeping this in mind and trying to prepare for it for a long time. Both in the day-to-day maintenance of the budget records that I keep here, and based on almost a year, it's about 3/4 of a year of my experience here of what the needs kind of have proved to be, how they might change in the future. So anticipating a lot of improvement, continuing improvement, I really should say. So, I suppose my first question is, are there any immediate questions that you guys had about the packet? Or shall we go down the line?
So. No, I think we're good.
So, are you asking for us to reduce your budget?
As we sit in suspense, that sounds
That is a
wonderful.
marvelous question. To my understanding, the budget that we were allocated last budget season was loosely assigned by the accountant that was helping Paul at the time. So it wasn't necessarily consulting the proposal that the board had submitted that year. And so not everything matches up with what we even would have asked for. But this budget that is being proposed tonight is a lot more accurate and reflective of what we actually have going on and what we could really benefit from, not just as the library, but the community.
Have you considered inflationary rate to expense?
What she's saying makes a lot of sense, though.
It does, but I'm looking at it going, you're asking me to drop your budget $7,000.
Well,
From you.
let's hear what she has to say.
You are stellar. I wish every department would do the same thing.
Well, let's hear what she has to say.
I think it's.
Now what you got, Dan? Well, I do think this is pretty realistic though, because last year we were kind of, you guys were kind of in your pool not opening season. We had no librarian, we were running on fumes and volunteers and board members. I mean, last year we really didn't have anything that was comparable, and then we had a really messy one the previous year too, because we had a lot of our payments and expenses were out of whack and way over. And so I think this is, in looking at it from my perspective and being, looking at the board and what you guys have done in the last year, I think this is extremely realistic, and I think you do have inflation considered. I think you have your new programs considered. I mean, before you guys had full-time librarian and 2 assistants we were paying. Your payroll
We
is
didn't have a full-time librarian, we had 3 part-time staff.
Marcella was considered full-time, wasn't she?
No, she was never
I can
full-time.
confirm based on all the payroll records that I've had, because she kept everything
All of them,
papered.
but she was like 30 some hours though.
We
It
had,
was-
our budget was for a total of 50 hours staff time per week. A
And that's how
library
it
that was
worked, okay.
open 25 hours.
Well, but even so, it was 3 individuals, and we're down to
Yeah.
just 1. She does amazing coverage and still does amazing
Yes.
things at
Oh,
the library. You guys have seen incredible growth, absolutely wonderful interaction. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. I think every week or every time you come to a meeting and you give a presentation, it's extremely obvious what you guys have been doing and how much work you've been putting into it. You've taken on additional duties as assigned, wherever they may be dropping from. You're doing an amazing job with the website and what we're looking to build and maintain there. I do think realistically, yeah, it's right where it needs to be.
I appreciate
And that is odd, but is that something that works that far against us if we do make that down?
No, it's just overall, if you're not having to do too many transfers, and basically what you do is we're gonna keep you what you're asking for, but there's always a tendency to be like, down the line if something happens, and we need to give you more money,
It's harder to do.
it's harder to do versus what's already budgeted, so then we have to get into transfers and where do we plug it in and so forth.
Right.
Whereas if we turn around and we go, okay, let's just hold you the same you had this last year. It's better to have it and not need it than to need it and have to find it.
So when you say what we had last year, which figure are you referring to?
88,795.
Because I've been operating
On the
my.
48415,
Yes.
which is all she was allocated based on
Yeah.
how it
Right.
works.
Right.
I
but
did,
then you
I
turn
did
around
not
and you-
operate
okay.
based on the numbers that the accountants just kind of plugged in there.
Correct, but that was what was budgeted for you,
Right.
so it's not necessarily what your expected expenses would be and whatnot, but that is the number that was
Okay.
budgeted
Dan
last year.
has-
And you were right, it was,
Yeah,
it
so
was
along with
completely
your
crazy.
comments, there's already potentially some unforeseen circumstances coming up. Ashley's been addressing me on irrigation issues on this building and the property. If we could budget dollars for irrigation repairs, get those done over the winter, it's gonna benefit the Parks Department, and
Right.
not having to manually
Yeah.
water this, it's gonna beautify the grounds, which she is after, and make the
That's already been
maintenance
plugged
easy.
in here?
It is not.
So if we plug that
So
in
if
and
we
bring it
put
back
that
up
in
to
as
just
a
have
maintenance item
no changes.
or system repairs, one or the other, those 2 line items, and we budget $5,000 for that now, we're still under last year's budget.
But a lot
And
closer.
she has a $5,000 surplus for incidentals, because I see us being able to do the work ourselves in-house for probably around 3.
Okay,
I think that's a great
Yeah.
suggestion, cause then we're getting more, that's exactly the direction we wanna go, we wanna make sure that all these properties are going and being maintained to a higher
It
level,
would
so
be
they're not
benefit
more liability
to
insurance,
the
so.
entire city as a whole.
Right,
as
well,
far
that's
as
great,
operations
and that's
go.
wonderful to be already,
we've done
Able to do it.
improvements here.
Only if the park, if
Yes.
the library board and Nancy.
So we've done improvements here, we wanted to continue to do improvements here because it's an asset we really wanna stabilize for the
so
city.
keep it stabilized.
I
Yeah.
agree,
All
and
right,
the only
let's-
reason I
let's hear
hadn't
from
factored,
you. Go ahead.
Sorry.
the only reason I hadn't factored that in, because I didn't wanna accidentally step on the toes of another department's, purview. So that's the only reason that wasn't
Sure.
factored in.
Sure.
And, with the summer, it's then come into my attention again. I had heard mentions about that, but, overall, we got lucky last fiscal year with the weather that we had. The grounds were pretty well kept just by the grace of whoever. And, this year, it's been a team effort certainly, and there's a lot to improve upon there, I agree. So if we could work out a collaboration that works within a budget that you all feel is also responsible and was like reflective of what's needed and what the city would like to see, then I'm okay with that. But I have, it's the inside of the library that I'm especially concerned with, and also taking the library out. And so the budget that we've kind of proposed here would really allow us to expand and, there's another word I'm thinking of, expand, improve, and just reach outward, cause literal outreach is something that we have a goal of. I'd like to see elements of the library, the public library, in the senior center, in the school, here and there. And the things that we've requested to begin with here will get us on that path. It's not gonna make it happen all at once, but if there's nothing else that I am, it's patient, so.
Is there an outreach program for the villa?
I have seen historical record of there being one, but I would like to reestablish that. When I first came on, the kind of outreach that we're trying to do was with the school through the Atlas program, and for reasons that I've described in council meetings that didn't pan out the way we hoped it would. And so, but the senior center is one of the primary ones, because I know that a lot of the people over there are longtime residents who still have accounts in my system, and they miss it here. If I could bring that to them, that would be amazing, and I think the whole community would feel it every time that their family comes to visit them, and they're being enriched by a city-provided facility, or
Absolutely.
institution rather,
Absolutely.
so.
Do you feel increase, so you've been operating off the 48,415, right?
That's correct.
If we essentially added 40,000 to that, do you feel that's something we could recoup on?
Recoup on? Well, it's important to keep in mind that a library is not necessarily an income producing thing, it's an outcome producing thing. So you see it in the waves of how the community feels about itself, and just to lay that groundwork. Now on that level, this budget will free up a lot of ability on my part to pursue grant writing projects. Grants.gov, there's a lot of in-state things, there's cross-departmental things federally, such as education, routes we can go, health and wellness. Libraries are really evolving into just an across-the-spectrum hub for communities. So there's a lot of routes that we can pursue. And if I have the help that I need and the means that I need to make things happen in the meantime, it could really pay out. I don't have exact figures mapped out for you, and you wouldn't want me to do it in my head, I promise. But this will get us on the path to where it could be a profitable library. I wouldn't put it past us. We're a very unique, special little town. I wouldn't put anything past us.
What's your plans for, you got 5,000 here for building repairs?
Yes, so one of the main projects that would be a priority in that budget area is getting the meeting room online. The meeting room could be a real asset in, well, we've seen just what a little bit of refurbishing does for the loft. But this is a universal asset that could be used for community members' privacy if they're attending Zoom meetings with their doctors, or if study groups want to meet, or if the AA group wants to meet, they have a place they can do that. And the ideas that we have would include local people in these projects to make it a very adaptable space, because it's tight, it's small, but it could be really effective. I know, for example, Spike Jones, the new VSO for our county. Jordan, thank you so much. Who's Spike Jones? Is that like a?
Don't come.
Okay. He'll laugh when I tell him that later. But the new VSO Spike, he came in the other day because he doesn't have an office here in Crawford and he serves 2 counties. And so he would like regularly to be coming into town once a month. And he brings his own equipment. All he does is use the Wi-Fi and help locals with everything they need. While he was here for a couple of hours. He helped 3 different veterans get set up in the system, you know. So it's a place that people come to. We had only 3 show up to that senator's office hours bit that we have here, but I think once it catches on where it's at and that she can have her own little office to actually hang out and have materials ready, it could make a big difference for a lot of people.
Well, and I think that works the other way too, once other people start realizing that this can be a real hub and that the community is aware that so many people are coming here, and I think you guys are creating such a wonderful new standard of that it won't be such a laughable thing when we hear that, you know, anybody that's from state politics comes and visits and nobody shows up. Well, we're not used to them coming, we had no idea they were probably coming. But when, you know, when that starts becoming, they realize that this is so easy to come to, that we can help make sure that the community's here when they do come. So, no,
that's been a huge part.
Wonderful.
It's been a huge part of the last year is trying to really establish the feasibility and the relatability of this place to the whole community. So that's something we've been working really hard on. And when I say we, I of course mean myself, my board, and the spirit of the library. I say good morning and good night to it every day. I really do. I love this place, I love this community, and anything that helps it thrive is well worth my time and effort. I know that much.
Awesome. What's the stipend, the 5625?
5625. Historically, that's been at 0. I'm not sure what that ever was meant for. Anything that was historically left 0 that I couldn't think of a use for in the last year, I left blank.
It's not one I'm familiar with.
Contractual services, is that like?
Contractual services includes things like the backup and security services we receive through Mobius. It's a very concise contract, but it is a contract that they provide us that every month. And then
is that new discount that we get part of the contract too then?
That E-rate discount applies only to the internet service, so not the backups or the IT security that the network receives. And then the LMS software refers to the library management software, so our catalog or checkout system.
Sure.
And then the new addition to those contractual services would be an Office Microsoft 365 subscription is what that would be. And the reason for that is because, as I've mentioned in at least one recent council meeting, our computer lab is woefully out of date. The computers do not actually have Microsoft Word, Excel, or PowerPoint. So if someone was coming in to do their home budgets, or I had a woman, for example, this holiday season, come in to write Christmas letters to her family, and she was so frustrated with the open source software, the word processor that we do have, that she, in hopes to write a touching letter to her family, threw her hands up and said, "Forget it, I'll handwrite them," and left.
Do
so
they
that
not
was,
have the capability, or we just have?
we don't have, so
We have the program.
we don't have the software. And computers don't come with it built in like they
No,
used to.
you have to purchase it's a yearly subscription.
Yes.
Right. But subscription costs for a library are much different than a personal subscription, so they're.
I've priced it for.
There's a simple solution to that, by getting a business plan for the whole city with 300 keys. For $6 a month, we could sort the problem all the way across all the departments.
What? Okay, say
A
that again.
business plan for Microsoft 360, it would be managed by the city, has 300 keys.
Means you can put it on 300.
Means you can put it on 300 different devices. For
As an
$6 a
aside.
month.
For Microsoft 360.
Yes, it would be under the business tab, and I
Yeah,
can't.
It's a
it would
business
cost
plan.
$6 a month?
$6.99, I believe.
I
is what
don't
it
know if that's the exact right figure, but it's not, bad.
For 300 computers.
300 computers,
Up to
yes.
300 bucks.
The,
And then you're always
and
getting the
and
up-to-date
aside,
version.
Because we're running into the same problem right now. Every time we update our devices, it's gonna get harder and harder and harder. So old records are gonna become more and more obsolete as we move into the future, because it's all about subscriptions. You can go and you can buy a regular key for $360 and have Word as a one-time use. You never get any updates for it or anything like that. Now you can use whatever is on there, but if you ever hit a glitch or a problem or anything, now with these 365 subscriptions, you can actually get one that's a slightly better, maybe like $20 a month, you pay it yearly.
Right.
It's still 300 keys, but now you've got Microsoft support where you can call on the phone. Hey, why doesn't my Excel work? Why did my Word delete this program? What's going on here? And each key gets a terabyte of cloud storage, so now you're not even locking up your machines. Now you're saving everything digitally, it's not even your problem, it's backed up somewhere else. Like, there's real easy ways we can
Is
solve
that
this
gonna
problem.
operate on these older computers?
yes. And an additional note on that is that those business plans also come with SharePoints, so it's like a business file storage, where different departments can have their own folders for regular recurring things.
So
Just-
we'd have
Like
to
a
have
Dropbox
we'd have to have a
shared
pretty
between
good
employees.
IT
It's like a
guy, though.
shared drive.
No,
How old
it
is
takes
this
the IT
computer?
guy out of it, it makes it more user friendly.
They
Well, I was getting so
are
that it's not
refurbished
accessible.
from, I think they were initially purchased
So that would take
maybe
care of
5 years ago, refurbished. I would have to pull the records to know specifically. They were updated last fiscal year, right at the beginning of it, I believe.
Yep,
Their
they did.
storage was upgraded a little bit, but there are other elements inside that hardware that are beginning to go obsolete.
So my question is, how many do we have?
4 public use computers.
So what kind of, replacement program do we need to get set up on to where we're getting new computers?
We're life cycle.
I
Yeah.
have knowledge of a grant through the Nebraska Library Commission called the Library Improvement Grant that's often used for technological updates that would probably, if we were awarded it, we could probably replace those with laptops that could be more mobile, easily updated, and still be connected to full-size monitors and keyboards and everything. So replacing the actual computers is something I intended to do by grant if possible.
If that's done with grant, does it still need to be a line item, because it'd be funds that we maybe have to pay for and be reimbursed?
It depends, if we're gonna draw funds pending the awarding of the grant, or if we wait to have the grant awarded.
And I
what-
haven't
what
seen-
about-
Probably,
what
it's
about
not
these
emergencies,
other-
we could probably wait till.
Well, wait till the grant's awarded, then no.
What about these other computers?
I would try to include those in the grant, cause it would be overall library improvement, and that includes the librarian's ability to library. So.
Cool.
So, where would we? It's such a low number, where would we put the, in the budget for this, what Edward was talking about?
You wouldn't necessarily have to.
We wouldn't put that in those
'Cause
budgets,
it's-
that would go in
No.
the general
It
budget.
would be the general fund.
General?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cause we're gonna have spread across the whole
I think
city.
that's a no-brainer.
Right.
I don't understand why we're not already doing that.
Cause do you guys have Microsoft 360 or anything along those lines at the city office, where you guys have Word or
No,
Excel
I
or?
think we're AG or-
We do have the
Standalone
Word and
app.
Excel.
But,
so I
but
don't
you
know
do
what
have
comes
Word and
off of.
Excel, so
Yeah.
what is that through?
It's probably just a
Is it-
single.
It's, we have
Was it the
11.
downloaded one?
We have Windows
The
11.
little
Well, so like,
CD
you're,
back then?
okay, for example, I have 2 computers in the water plant. One runs my water plant, one is a brand new laptop that I just got. One has Windows 11. I have nothing on it, no Word, no Excel, no anything. My old computer has everything on it because it was just in there.
To begin with.
So I can transfer the files over. I can use a free web-based version of Excel and Word, but I can't even update the same things that I could
Those
do on my
web-based
iPad
versions are incomplete.
because of
They
the
don't have
new
all the
paywalls.
functionality.
And it's just as the software improves, they're gonna keep putting more and more paywalls,
I think since we're gonna be
and that's
looking
what we're
at
gonna run into.
improving the software dynamic through all departments, we just budget that to the general
General,
fund.
yeah. And it's not a big one, so that'd be easy to
The
do.
one that I've proposed, or that we proposed in this budget accounts for 5 computers, not including the one that does the least amount of hard computing.
And that
So-
was under which line item?
That was under, stand by. Suite, that's under 5600 contractual services for office suite software. And I've priced the plan that I was looking at out at, $69 or $69.99 a year, not including tax.
And that's for all 5?
And that's for all 5 computers, so that was just an option,
So we can remove possibly $70 from your contract.
all 70 of them,
There we go.
yeah.
Well, but where she's already low, we don't need to remove it.
No, I just using that.
So you're just trying to
You
trim
guys
the
have,
trees.
you guys have listed other revenue, what would you include in that?
The note that I put on the side of that is programming supplies,
Gotcha.
so everything from, 'cause we don't have a line item presently for programming particularly. And that would go from everything to craft supplies, if we were to have a painting class for kids or something in here.
Gotcha,
All the
what
way
comes
to-
in when you do that, sure.
Yep, or the Smokey the Bear birthday cake
Right.
pops that we got, just basic supplies.
So I guess if you were able to get a grant to get new computers, right, but that's, I mean, we can't count on that. So we need to come up with a schedule for replacement and then be putting money aside.
That's something that I think we could do.
I think we should budget each year this amount of money towards replacement of the computers.
That's something that I think could easily be spread over between 2, 3, or 5 years.
I would say, based on historical performance of software changes, hardware changes, updates, a life cycle for an IT piece of equipment is 24 to 36 months max.
Ideally, and
So, if we're looking at replacing a computer, IT piece every 2 years,
okay.
okay? You're talking about, or, you know,
So we're looking at replacing computers every 2 years?
2 to 3 years, ideally.
And then keeping out a rotating cycle?
Yeah.
Well, if we're gonna offer this service, then we need to have the up-to-date stuff.
No, I'm just.
Right.
Citywide, I have heard of larger entities being able to get deals on contracts for rotating machines like that. I know that's how it is for schools, cause
Yeah.
those computer lab computers
There-
rotate in and out.
State governments, federal governments, schools, municipalities, and things, this is normally what they do, is they take a total cost package that they contract for the hardware, for the software, and for IT maintenance, and they forecast it
Yep.
for depreciation over 36 months.
And you can
So maybe
appreciate
we
a lot
need to be
easier than
looking
trying
at-
to do it sporadically,
Right.
and then it's not big enough to
So-
really put on appreciation.
Maybe we need to be looking at doing this citywide.
Yeah,
Then
that's,
you
I
have
think that
consistency
ideally,
across the machines, this is the IT in me speaking now, but then you have
Much
consistency
appreciated.
across the machines.
right,
The same fixes, we usually work on all of them.
Would you be comfortable doing research to find out a little bit more for us on that project?
Yes, is there a timeline that you have in mind for that? Okay,
October
We're not
1.
asking for it in a week and days.
Next Tuesday.
I think
Tomorrow morning.
More than a
we
week, next
could
Tuesday.
definitely use the information before we go into final budget conference for reconciliation, which is probably gonna be in about a month.
Understood.
Okay.
But if you don't, I mean, it's something we can do for next year too, I mean, it's not like we're
Yeah.
gonna.
Let me just pull up the calendar real quick, 'cause I could probably tell you which council meeting I could report on that.
Oh,
Or no?
No.
Okay,
We're
we're good. Alright.
I mean, the unfortunate thing is we already have a new computer at the water plant, but what about yours? They're all the ancient, aren't they?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of the
So-
same manufacturers' stickers and.
So you were talking IT stuff, does that include phones? You think? Since we're looking at needing to redo that.
Well, if-
soon, and-
Not
Because-
that I've ever seen.
Because
curious if you-
most systems now, phone systems now, what's going on, are VoIP phones,
Right.
network.
Mhm.
Yeah, they come up as part of the IT system. And if you take a big contract where you're gonna take in your IT management, IT replacement,
Right.
you're gonna pick up
Those
your phone
routine,
process
yeah.
too, with voice over IP.
Right.
If that's not what you want, you wanna stay with, you know, a digital hardline phone system that's got a switch and a back and everything else, and then you have to go to a separate vendor on that.
I have questions if everybody's
Yeah.
through. And I have questions about this year's budget, because you're right, if we're gonna come in under budget, we're spending based on 46, not an $86,000 budget.
Right. So here's the thing though, we discussed this the other day, right? So the realistic budget is whatever was allocated for revenue, correct? Is that how that works on those, is the library under one of those departments?
Oh, for a transfer?
Yes.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
the actual budget we can operate off of was the 48,415.
Was that, out of curiosity, was that, have we looked at what it was for the previous 2 years, if it was similar to that, or if it was drastically different?
No, I think the kind of way I looked at it was, those figures were calculated because of what was approved for, the expenses.
Right, they don't have a lot of different expenses, I mean, they stay
Right.
fairly consistent with them, so it makes sense.
Did the
Yes.
that department, when we did when we got up to date, did we have transfers from the general fund into library to make up for shortfalls?
Yes.
And that's what we're looking at now, is based on what we plussed up for those shortfalls.
Yep, there's numerous departments
Yeah.
that we
So-
transferred into, yep.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, it's, so basically, we just took everything expense-wise for the last fiscal year to date, including what was budgeted and what we had to make additional transfers in to make up for shortfalls, and that's your new base number, okay? We're not saying you're gonna go on your old budget, we're gonna say your old budget plus we already transferred to make up shortfalls. Here's your new baseline.
So refreshed anticipated expenses.
Right, right, that's why we're asking you, is there anything additional than what we've already made up for?
The thing that comes to my mind first is we've requested a new employee, a new part-time person, and we set it at minimum wage. I would be interested in if we could increase that from $13 an hour, $14 an hour type of window. Just to pay a person a respective salary, so that's one thought I have. Another thought I have is that if this is next year's budget, we can't hire that person until October. If we can.
You'd do the following year, yeah, cause if you don't have that potential part-time in this budget, then it wouldn't be this next year.
Well, but we've got a budget that, according to this, we're not going to use all of those funds. Could we hire that person in September? Could
You'd
we?
have to calculate it into your wage projection.
Well, the projected wages we have here, we only have one staff person, we're not gonna.
Go back and recalculate.
We probably need to search out further information on that, but we don't.
So what's the,
I don't know the answer to that, is what I'm saying.
what's the, need for a part-time to extend hours or?
To extend hours, absolutely, we would be able to have weekends, we'd be able to have mornings and evenings.
Which has been a big request.
Yes,
Are
Yes.
you,
And it's
are
actually
you not
stated
getting 40 hours?
I clock in at 40 hours pretty regularly,
Okay.
and I'm kinda topped out. The rise and increase that we've seen is not an infinite trajectory. I'm cresting on that plateau mark where there's only so much I'm gonna be able to do. Because
So what's the difference? So right now you have potential wages at 51, what does that need to be at to include that person? Is
51.
So 51 does include that person?
I believe, yeah. And then the 22,000 for payroll taxes.
that was calculated for
Right.
the last fiscal year.
Okay.
And so how many hours is this other person?
If we were to hire somebody at 20 hours a week, no, I haven't, that's your department. I believe we would be able to afford that. It's getting the permission to, put in the request to hire that position this year, not next year.
So you made the comment of a respectable wage. What is that in your mind?
You know, a minimum wage is asking somebody to do minimum work. If we,
I would disagree with that.
Minimum wage is what, $12?
No,
It's going
it's
to
going to be
13.50.
13.50. 13.50.
I've always
So-
just put a little bit more than minimum wage,
Do you,
$14 is what
do
it's
you
getting.
have a prospective candidate you already
No,
have
I
in
do
mind,
not.
or
No,
a
that's
prospective qualification requirement that you have?
The cool thing about librarianship in the state of Nebraska is that it's open to all interested citizens or
Right.
library staff. So that would be something that they could absolutely do.
I just have reservations about funding a payroll line and the benefits and a
Well, if it's
withholdings
part-time-
line, part-time or full-time, if we don't have the personnel pool qualified in the area that would be able to do it.
The job description, as I've seen it, for the position that we'd be hiring for, which depending on what manual you're looking at the cities, is either described as library aide or assistant librarian.
Which requires no experience, and it's not required, not necessary.
No, and I'll tell you this, honestly, a 16-year-old who's semi-capable with a computer would change this library
Yeah.
significantly.
Which is a minimum wage job, and there's nothing minimum about a minimum wage job, and so, and that's why I speak up. I just think, at what point, or at one point, I think that was the view, but that hasn't been the view for a while, and those kind of jobs have changed a lot in the
We're
last 10
talking
years.
about a 16 to 18-year-old, I mean, you're talking about an entry-level position.
Yeah.
And that's what minimum wage really is, it is an entry level, and that, it needs to be available
What
to
we've
anyone
done
and
is
everybody
gaining
at
work
exactly the,
experience.
at exactly the minimum
I
wage
would
level.
like to recruit from the college. You know,
I would love you to recruit from the college if you'd like, it's still gonna be entry level. They're not gonna have experience, they're not gonna have, but if they do, I mean, if you find someone that does and whatnot, we can expand on that, but I just,
If it was a library aide, I would say, no experience required, we would budget for minimum wage.
yeah,
If it's an assistant librarian that requires somebody to have an education,
That's
or
good.
expectation, some education in library science, to do the capacity of what you're looking at doing in your absence, then and you wanted more wage for it, that would be different.
yeah. But if it's just extra help to cover walk-ins and projects and whatnot, that's exactly what minimum wage is.
To do some
Right,
things.
right.
The grant writing
And I
and
think
things
that's
like
something that
that.
we could easily consider. I think you had it spot on.
And,
I don't know,
you know,
you get paid to do a job, do it.
in my view, the appropriate minimum wage is $0 an hour.
You work for what
You gotta be worth what you're being paid,
You make sure you pay
right?
smart.
So, if somebody comes in and they start out at that,
On you, yeah.
minimum wage, which is right now is $12 an hour. It won't go up to 13, 15 until January 1. But if somebody comes in and they're performing well and, you know, then we can relook at that. Staying within the budgeted wages, we can look at a increase in pay for sure, if they're worth it.
Well, I think something else to consider in mind, it sounds like you guys are looking for just overall coverage and overall assistance. I don't know that it's something that you need any specific management assistant to the library, like, when we start adding words like that, we don't need two chiefs in the library with no workers. We
Right.
need a librarian with a worker. And so we have to make sure that when we go to set up these positions, that it's clear like that. We don't need too many chiefs. So that's something that we already need to reevaluate and restructure.
Yes.
So I would like you to take that in mind when you're presenting them to us.
Well, if there's anything that this library is good at, it's making a lot happen with what it's got on hand.
Yeah, you've done great.
Yeah, thank you.
So, we kind of move on.
Yeah. Good. Thank you.
Do you have anything else?
I have no further comments or questions.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Well, water and
Let's water down.
We don't need to cover fire, do we? We already covered that.
So,
Contract.
what I understood is, so we had a lot of amount that's
We're operating on Plum Street and stuff, so it's super good people.
because that's what was on a lot of
Mostly, probably. I mean, well, I get, I mean, like,
No, it's okay. Just as long as you're
what you
not.
and I are,
What the reality is, we turn around and.
Thought I was getting
can
to
turn
that.
around and go
Damn
right
it,
now
I think that.
that what we budgeted for the community building this year is
this
100%.
would be a joint.
We're not putting an increase to it.
Right.
But if I go to the pool, what we're budgeted, what they budgeted last year and what they
I wasn't
Maybe, I
thinking.
mean, well, how can we?
I know.
Park.
Right.
They're really dry.
Right, so it's so basically what we got right now, I turn around and go to the bank right now, for this last transaction, just that she gave me.
Did you pass your test?
As far as you know. I'm sorry, I cannot answer that with a affirmative or a negative at this time. If you'd like to get back to us later, different day.
Well, I gotta know if you're even worth sitting at the table.
I took the test. I'm there every day. I'm putting in the fucking work.
We go to what we made.
You keep looking for an electrician to put in some fucking work.
I know, we
Just
can't get an
what you're saying. You wanna throw some shade, let's throw
Won't
some
answer
fucking
emails,
shade.
won't
guys.
answer phone calls.
You know, we've authorized the use of trying to get the plant back into compliance. We're throwing that out there, you know, to
So
protect
we're
the
gonna hire
workers.
another electrician.
So we're just saying. Huh?
Yeah. Told on him for months, he won't respond to nothing.
Killing us.
Yeah, very much.
Literally.
Alright.
Mr. Ryan? Mr. Blacksheep? What's your last name?
Crooks.
Remember, you're here working, it's official after, you're making a presentation, after you sign the paper.
Oh, yeah.
Alright.
I'm here, I'm getting paid.
Yes, sir.
So how do you guys wanna start?
Go through.
Water and
Let's say turn to water
sewer.
first, is that work okay?
Yeah, we're on water.
Which is 31, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right.
Okay. Go for it.
Show me on it. All right, wages are calculated with Edwards' wages, part of Dennis's wages, and potential part-time of the water plant labor. That's how I derived the wages. The same wages are split on the Dennis's side for the labor, but not reflecting hours for Edward. Eventually, right now, Edward's assisting with stuff at the sewage plant, but that'll get filled in once we are able to fill a full-time position with the labor. On call, I've we've got $2,100 in there, there's been 0 in there, but I need to account for some overtime with these guys. They're responding to a lot of different things, it doesn't matter. Kinda affects the operation when I've gotta pull the hours at 40 and get them, so I need to account for a little bit of overtime, so I'm not asking for a lot, but we need to be able to allow that here and there when it's needed.
Historically, how much overtime did you guys use last year? You pay no overtime on call at all?
We've got,
Most of the time I take it as comp.
he's got some comp time put in there, but we
Okay.
haven't allowed any overtime since I've been here, and I don't.
Historically, before these guys, there was a lot.
There was a lot of them.
Comp,
last year.
comp is being put in at.
Time and a half, just like overtime.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. All right, thank you.
That's amended work schedule for the school year for me.
Contractual services, that is our tank inspections, tank maintenance. We're considering maybe looking at a different avenue depending on what these people are. I haven't got involved with them yet, they've been providing this service, but it seems kinda just a blanket service. They called us with, 6 days advance notice, we want your tanks drained, we wanna do an internal tank inspection.
Well, basically they called and told us they wanted to come out, and I said we wanna do a full inspection, cause it hasn't been done in years.
Where are we at on compliance?
On what part?
This requirement for inspection, where does it hit us on compliance?
So we've met compliance right now, they're coming back in October, and that will meet compliance
This
for
is
this
the one
fiscal
that
year.
initially was like $300,000, and then over the years, it's.
Correct,
kinda dwindled
correct.
down to
Okay,
now where we're
okay.
So-
paying
okay,
So is
$65,000.
it,
So,
is it
we're
year
gonna
by year
cons-
contract then, so
Yeah.
Yeah,
so if
okay.
we didn't like it, we can change right away, yes.
We just,
So,
there's not that
it's,
many
it's
vendors.
something that we wanna look into, but it's a cost that we've got to
No, but
incur right now.
There is a local vendor.
There's
that-
one, it's not so local, but it's like Omaha, Lincoln, this one's out of Texas. So it's a lot closer.
Do you guys
But
have a
the reason-
projection on what they would charge up front? Cause this one, like I said, was tiered, so it was like $300,000.
I think it was higher initially because we painted those tanks those first couple of years.
And it was a contract.
Can we get an assessment?
Yeah.
So, we can, I'll reach out and I'll get back to you on this. They do have several different ways that we can work this out. We can pay them upfront outright and then run our contract with them. We can pay them tiered, we can pay them yearly, we can do all kinds of different plans with these guys. We just need to sit down and talk to them. We really need just to
Dive
dive into
into
our
the
contract
contract.
and
see
figure
what
out where we're
paying
at.
for and
Sounds
what
like
we're getting.
insurance, where you
Yeah,
just
that
need
would
to.
be great.
Because that's what we really
continually be
don't know.
looking for
It's
new
just
I
options
would-
just in case.
Time
As
constraints.
I would
far as
really-
I understood, all they're responsible for is making sure the inside of the tanks are clean and cameraing them.
No,
And
they're.
realistically, it's upkeep
More
on
than that.
full inspection, draining it and doing a full inspection, which I've been here 5 years, and they've
Not
never done that.
They've cameraed it.
They've cameraed it with like submersible.
Right.
But it's
But
our
I think we
responsibility
need-
to hold them, to hold
Yeah,
their feet to the fire.
and I don't think we've been doing that, so I think we need to do that. Well, we've gotta look in the contract and see how well we can do that.
I would hope that this actually works out with this company, cause my fear is if we drop them and go with another one, then we're gonna end up with a huge lump sum, initial startup,
Yeah.
which we can't afford.
But it's worth looking into.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's very similar to like your insurance plan, like you
Absolutely.
could easily start paying the same company too much over the years just to stay with them.
Absolutely.
We do the footwork on our end, and see
Sure.
right,
My
right
other,
plan.
my other fear is because we haven't had them properly inspected in a long time, that they're gonna find something in.
Well, we've been paying them, so it's gonna be.
Yeah, it sounds like it should be
It-
minimal
it's a
to
certain-
no
it's a
cost for
certain
them
line
to actually
item.
do it right.
If they, if a new vendor came, or even then found something that hadn't been reported, they're liable for it, they
Right.
sign off on it.
Are they?
Yeah.
When the city didn't allow them to do the inspection that they were contracted to do?
Well, they did inspections, they just did it with a rover as opposed to, or a submersible,
It is
as opposed to
submersible,
actual
it's
eyes
like
on.
Training eyes on.
So,
concepts on it.
I think they'd
So
still be
it's-
liable.
Because of
It's,
refusal to drain the tank.
I don't know on that.
Well, it's stuff to look into.
That's again, we gotta dig.
We're
into
gonna
the
investigate it.
Yeah, we'll investigate. Cool budget stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. we're creating some new line items within the water plant. Everything was convoluted into a couple lines, so identifying really where the maintenance, where the repairs was, and everything was different. So I took the cost out of some of those line items, created internal plant maintenance, which would cover all the internal pipe works, filters, stuff like that. External plant maintenance, all the pipe works, tanks, everything outside. City line items, that's everything servicing the house, meter pits. And then they've requested a line item for testing and maintenance. We've got to maintain a lot of testing and stuff like that. And then they also requested software to be able to update things at the plants and maintain that. Dollar amounts were very difficult to come with the situation we're in right now. So a projected $9,000 for internal and external maintenance. That's putting it at $18,000 for repairs, incidentals, and stuff like that. I'm floating with system repairs, which is right above that on the line item. I have a very small dollar amount in there, but I'm floating on trying to ask for 10,000 in there, knowing where we're at right now and what we need to fund. We're all kind of aware of the situation. Every time we take a step forward, we get knocked back 5 steps because we're finding, once we repair one thing, we're finding either the result of that damage created something else, or we're just getting something back in service and going, the valves are failing now, or this. So it's really hard to do. So, you know, debated about going, okay, do we just budget this amount and then we do ask for these big things as they happen, so we're aware of it, or how do we want to approach that? So I'm open for feedback on that right now.
So you're basically saying you need a $40,000 increase?
With where the plan is right now, yes. That does include an additional position that we never had before.
Okay.
And that, you said that was a full-time, right? That would be
Yes,
So-
yes.
Be a full-time laborer to bounce back.
What the city takes in water revenue, is it gonna be an over?
Sorry, what? I didn't catch
With what the city takes in water revenue, is it be an overage?
Fees and charges, 396 is what we generate in just on that. So yes, almost 100,000.
And if we can figure out a way to start calculating and charging more for any of these that are water, that just helps us.
We'd have to do, and you know, there's, on the delivery system in town too, there's a lot of problems that we're encountering. I mean, Gophers, let alone the costs we're gonna incur just to try to deal with the Gopher situation. You know, right now, running numbers, we're looking at 10 grand to 40 grand just to deal with this situation, depending on how we decide to do that. We've gotta bring in some kind of equipment. Debating if I'm gonna do an ask for that equipment yet this year, or if we're just gonna try to do rental, but all that cost has gotta be incurred this year, because by the end of this fiscal year, we've gotta have some answers to the state on identifying some of these lines that are buried with Gophers. So that cost is not reflected in the 2024-25 budget, because that's gonna be a this year ask, and it's coming.
We're getting,
That, what was it, the vac trailer?
Yeah, hydrovac trailer.
Is that something that can be split between the water and sewer?
It can, and that was my
Yeah.
potential for the ask this year and not on the upcoming budget. So that's a standalone unit, it could be skid, or we can have it put on a trailer. We have the flatbed Ford, which isn't the best truck, so it would handle a skid, but then that truck would be dedicated. I'd rather have a trailer we can store inside, mobilize, put anywhere we need, so that brings up the cost a little bit. Base price is about $30,000 for a small vac truck trailer, that would work for us, ranging up to 35 to 40, depending on how we have it set up. It's a tool that we would use consistently throughout the operation.
And where can we store this thing?
Where can we store this thing? In the sewage plant, in the bay. That's where its home would be.
Can that help us with our golf issue and this drainage thing? Can that be a
Too
start?
small, but what it would have done is cleaned out their wet well this year that they just put an expense of it. It would do that.
I'm just kinda hopeful that
definitely.
maybe this would be an
Yeah.
accidental second burn.
80 gallon water capacity, 80 gallon slurry tank. So we can suck 80 gallons of material into that at once, go dump it, do that again. So it would handle a couple of meter pits at a time. It would handle small projects. We'd be able to pothole anything anywhere, find utilities, find sprinkler lines. It could be used in the park for that. There's a lot of different uses for it. And I don't see any way around. If we bring one in and rent, we're gonna have to go to at least a full month rental. Because the
There's no
daily
problem.
obligations that the team has to maintain the 2 plants along with utilities, all their other things, there's no way we could rent one and stay consistent for.
So are you
for
asking us to
time.
buy this year off and not put it into next year's budget?
Yes.
That's what
It's
I'm
an
asking.
urgent acquisition requirement?
We have a lead report.
As of October 16th, we have to report to the state all the lead and copper lines from our side and your side.
And
We
the
have
whole-
to know, we have to go in the pit and we have to identify what's coming in and
And
what's going out.
And we've been in
Everything.
so many meter pits, they're just filled to the top of dirt from gophers.
You can't even read the
And
numbers.
this is a
if you want
compliance
to.
issue that we're still have outstanding.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, no,
Yeah.
everything, everybody are across the nation is a federal thing.
EPA came
Federal
down
law
with that.
coming.
We got
Everybody's got
notification,
it.
what, 4 weeks ago on it? I think the formal, maybe 5 weeks ago.
Formal compliance.
If you were to get